and welcome to episode 53 of Zapped to the Past. Trying to give the different feel to the start of the episodes these days, sort of thing. I might just do a round the world accents, but I probably won't. I am Adrian Mills, and I'm joined as always by Mr. Graham Raddings.
Hi.
If you have not listened before, this is a podcast where we discuss games that were released for the Commodore 64. Last week we looked at our first batch of games from issue 25 of Zapped 64, which we are in no way affiliated with, and were invigorated by Into the Eagle's Nest, angered by Aftermath, and shuddered at Shaolin's Road. This week we conclude our look at the games in May 1987, along with what was lighting up our TV and cinema screens that month. So Graham, tell us what we have going on in this episode.
In this ridiculously overpriced boutique hotel with a stroke-inducing minibar containing £9 bottles of water, £8 packs of peanuts, and £6 Mars bars of an episode, we take a scrolly trip into the troubled futuristic world of the violent Travelator-based Teddy Boy commute. In the decapitating Shockway Rider, rotate, shoot, and spin through the blocky budget backgrounds and torrid tunnels of death in Cyber 1, and buy an old castle and then check the small print to see that we will need our best demon repellent in the instructionally challenged Conquest. We also go for a 3D-ish trip down Light Cycle Avenue at brain-straining incomprehensible speeds in the zoomy Sunstar, go on another bug hunt on LV-426 with the exact same Space Marines as before, working our way through the ridiculously challenging Activision minigame version of Aliens, before grabbing our joysticks and hammering the fire buttons till our fingertips literally explode in the Minter-inspired, no-frills, no-story, kill-em-all, budget shoot-em-up madness of Pod. If that drunken minibar clear hasn't quite triggered a fraud alert from the bank, and drunk logic makes you think room service delivered Smarties would be a laugh, we boo, hiss and throw cabbages at the Village Idiot arcade conversion of the underwhelming and unfinished elevator action, honk in misnomer rage and go beep, 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 while we reverse away from the total crap garbage of Terminator and dive into the dull multi-choice and crusty gym sock world of the 80s teenager in the laborious growing pains of Adrian Mole. Finally, we get our rotation on in the technically spinny and hard-to-explain game logic of LazerWheel before wincing at the thought of a cassette game for £15 in 1987, reading the obligatory badly written sci-fi novella guff, and entering the sludge speed world of yet another CPU and life-draining vector game dump that we like to call Cholo. The merry month of May could have been a budget bonanza. Instead, this lineup is the equivalent of watching a poorly cat dry heave to German techno. It ain't going to end well.
Super. All that sounds... Actually, I know what's coming, so no, it sounds awful.
Delicious.
Sounds bloody awful. No, it doesn't. It sounds anything. Right. Something we used to do, we haven't done, and people have pulled us up on this, was look at the cover for Zap. So let's have a look at the cover for this month. The cover of this month is a weird one. It's not a game. It's basically Zap proclaiming how good they are.
Yes, it's a very triumphant, self-proclaiming thing.
Yeah, so it's the spaceship Zap 64 shooting lots of attacking CNVG and CU Commodore user spaceships.
It is those things, isn't it? Those are the logos. Yeah. Terrible.
Top right is CNVG. The other ones are all saying CU. And so it's basically them blasting the opposition. It says Britain's biggest selling Commodore magazine.
Which is big news by then, because that's pretty clever.
Yeah, they've done well for themselves. The boys done good. The boys have done good.
I can't believe it was a pound. A pound, as much as it sounds daft, was a lot back then.
If you paid for it.
What do you mean if you paid for it? What do you steal? Did you steal it?
I may have... I was a poor paper boy.
I can't believe you robbed it.
Actually, I didn't. No, I had it on subscription.
What? No, you didn't. You robbed it, robber.
No, I had it on subscription at from our paper shop.
They
would hold one back.
Of course they would.
Yeah, and then I would steal another one and sell that on for mega profit.
You stole it. He stole it.
It's how I paid for my backup board to copy all the Commodore games. I was a dark.
You was a tape pirate. The worst kind.
Absolutely. Honestly. Well, I couldn't use discs, so they wouldn't have been compatible with my system.
And you didn't have one.
Exactly, not compatible with my system. There's no point in using discs.
Fair enough.
So Zap are defeating the competition. Well done, Zap.
Yeah, it's just nicely drawn, in all fairness, and nicely rendered and stuff. So
it's all right.
Yeah.
It's all right. There you go. So that's your cover. So we've got loads of games to cover this week again. I think we've got 11 or so, and film and everything. So let's crack on, shall we, and get into our first game. Graham, travel the highways and byways of the future and tell us all about your journeys as a Shockway Rider.
So the Shockway Riders, the Shockway is actually a series of travelators. So in the future, in this mysterious future, the paths, roadways, sidewalks, whatever you call them, have been replaced by travelators, which is what you get at like airports, isn't it? At least certain parts of the airport. This is from the makers of Light Force. So this is Roy Carter and Greg Foley. So this is essentially FTL / whatever they call themselves. Music here is also by Rob Hubbard. So take note of that because it's quite an interesting, if repetitive, ditty. So this is a game essentially about traveling travelators and being violent on them, really. In the future, the great megacities are encircled by motorized walkways, which are called the Shockways. In this game, you are required to traverse the Shockways in order to complete what we call a circle or a full circle. So you've got to go full circle, and that means traveling the 8 districts on the Shockway. So you've got to go around 8 times, essentially. Now, in the future, these megacities are circled by these shockways, and essentially what they are 3 layers on the screen, the 3 layers of parallax scrolling paths. So fast at the front, medium speed in the middle, slow at the back. And you are a sprite, which are a character in this. And now, Zapped attributed this to some weird character that doesn't actually exist in any documentation I could find. So you essentially play a guy that is traversing the Shockway to become the ultimate Shockway Rider. Now in Zapped it said it's some kind of play on the name of Folis. I'm not sure what all that's about. But anyway, so the ultimate aim of all riders is to go full circle. So they've got to go for all the Shockways. Or as you try and do this, there are criminals, innocent people that dressed as criminals, gangs and stuff trying to stop you from doing that. And where possible, they'll either kick you, punch you, throw things at you, do all the things required to stop you journeying your way around the Shockways. On top of that, you've also got traps and things to avoid and speed ramps erected by the locals that are angry about said Shockways. So you actually have to sort of make your way a little bit. Now, if you imagine kind of a version of Knucklebusters that scrolled. So the 3 layers of Knucklebusters, the top layer scrolls slowly, middle layer scrolls middle speed, and the bottom layer scrolls fast. And enemies don't fly at you all the time like doing Knucklebusters. They kind of jump into view, and you have to sort of navigate, punch, because you can either punch these enemies or you can throw things at them if you pick the bricks and the things up you can throw. And so the idea is that you sort of make your way through these things. Now, the graphics in this game are quite interesting. You've got 8 districts to get through, which are North Side, The Scrubs, East Park, Blackwall, South Side, Broadway, West End, and Boulevard. And the idea is that you can get through those. Now, progression through this game is tricky because once you get through each individual district, obviously the ante gets upped. You get more enemies. They hop up across the platforms. You can push up and down on your joystick to sort of jump up and down the different speed shockways. You can move left and right on those, and you can press your fire button, and that is either punch or strike. And you can also throw objects in that direction. The graphics are a kind of medium res. You look a bit like what I imagine Alvin Stardust would have looked like in this game. Sort of big sideburns.
You're a bit of a teddy boy, aren't you?
Yeah, a bit of a teddy boy in this, but your character's kind of a bullish kind of sort of character, and you just sort of jumping along scrolling. Now, scrolling is nippy. The game kind of works. If you lose it, if you die, if you hit something, then you're weirdly beheaded almost at every opportunity. So you always lose your head in this game. But the game itself, its play area is quite nice. The music obviously is Hubbard, so the music's quite catchy. It's repetitive, but it kind of works. The game logic itself is quite nice. It all functions as the game should. They trapped it in this weird story about making it around the Shockway, and you're a Shockway Rider, and there's gangs, and it doesn't really matter about any of that. The idea of the game is quite simple. Get from A to B, kill as much as you can, try and survive. And that is to its credit. It doesn't deviate from that particular, it doesn't add more complexity, more stupidity to that. It is what it is, what it is. The issues I have with this a little bit are, I don't get that this is a game you're going to play for a long period of time. It's pretty boring and repetitive at the end of the day. And the music kind of makes that worse. Normally, Hubbard tunes of this type make the games kind of better. I think this doesn't help here because it's kind of doom dip and that's all good. But if you're going to play that music over the period of 8 districts, and the districts are quite long, and yes, it's just long scrolling, jumping, punching, avoiding, and you're going to be doing that a lot. I think the longevity of this game is the real issue. The controls are nice, speed's nice, scrolling's nice, graphics are okay. There's nothing inherently wrong with the way it plays, looks, feels. I think it's just a bit of a dull game, but it's $8.95. It's a little bit different to everything else we've seen, and it's an FTL game, which means it's got a little bit of polish and a little bit of graphic dexterity to it. I quite like it. I've always liked the music for Shockway Rider. I couldn't honestly tell you why, really. It's kind of interesting. But that said, the game itself is okay. It's nippy enough. You can do what you can do. It feels like more like a budget game, really. I think this is $8.95. It got 86% in Zap. It feels like it's an $8.95 game. I feel like it would have succeeded more if it was a bit lower in price. I think when these games are of a very specific game mechanic just fleshed out over a series of levels, I think maybe the price should be lower. And I think this would have succeeded a bit more if it was. But at the end of the day, this isn't altogether that bad. It's actually quite good, and it's certainly better than something like Knucklebusters, which missed the mark massively. But what do you think?
Yeah. So, you're a similar sort of ballpark. I think the world of the future has turned into a massive violent travelator where one touch with a criminal causes your body to disintegrate and your head to fall to the floor, which is kind of strange. I wonder what's going on there. It's very strange. I thought another way of describing this, you're right in how you described it, but if you basically took one half of the screen from InfoDroid and saw it from the side, because that does the three-speed sort of traveling thing, doesn't it, as well? So it's quite similar. So if you flipped one of the sides and so you had the path in the middle at the top, similar sort of thing. It's nice. Yeah, it's nice and fast. It has a simple feel to it. There's not much more to this beyond the starting premise, aside from deadly plants that appear at level 2, which can kill you at a single touch on the travelators. I don't quite know what they are. It's all very strange. And you know, the enemies are they always the same? It's just those pink sort of suited guys and the thing, and I quite like, you know, they could be hidden inside a granny. It's all kind of strange, isn't it? It's all weird. But it was I thought it was kind of strange at first, because in the first level you get like bonus lives for killing 5 innocent bystanders, which is kind of weird. You just have to kill the innocent to get extra lives, and in that first level, it's kind of an odd premise. Like, what? Aren't you a vigilante? You're not much of one. Well, that's what it says in the Zap review, but that idea of that you being a vigilante is not mentioned in any other documentation of any description. No. Okay. That's a Zap thing, because I read that and I thought, okay, it says you're the vigilante in this and that and the other. You're trying to clean up the... Yeah, that's not mentioned in any other... And I mean in any other review of this, or any other documentation, including the in-tape inlay. All right, weird. Because it does make a bit more sense than if all you're trying to do is go around, because that was one of my main complaints about it. It's, like I said, it's nice, fast, it's simple, but there's just not much more to do beyond that starting premise. So I just never felt like I was accomplishing anything. I know, you know, you're constantly going left to right, but I just never felt like I was progressing. You have to do is get to I watched I think I got three or 4 levels in. All you have to do is get to a nebulous section of the level you're on in the time limit, and there doesn't seem to be any way to actually know if you're close to completing the level. Did you find that? Was there something I was missing, or I didn't see anything? That was the same. What I discovered. Yeah, I didn't see any sort of thing like going, oh, you've done this much, there's that much, whatever. And that was a bit of a problem, because you never knew how close you were. It was just basically just stay down the bottom and as often as you can and move right as fast as you can, and then that's how to complete it. Yeah. Obviously, you get less time to react and stuff, so it's harder, but whatever. So it was weird. And watching the YouTube video, it was completed it. There's like 18 sections in the first one. I think 17, 16, 50, some at 18. It seemed random how many you had to go. I think I would have liked, because this feels arcadey. It feels like it could have been an arcade conversion, but it's not, obviously, because it has that simple just keep going, get a high score kind of logic, which is an arcade thing. But for a home computer game, I think I'd have just liked some kind of real and obvious target. So that notion of being a vigilante, of cleaning them up, Death Wish 3 style, should we say, or whatever, and having to kill a set target of enemies on each section in a certain amount of time would have given it a bit more objective based and given the player a bit more of a target. And I think that's what it's missing. As it is, it's just an open-ended ride. It just becomes, as you have noted, just a bit dull and repetitive. So like some things in life, I just found this fun for 5 minutes. And then just was like, And I think that's how I felt about it back then, because I did play this back then, and I was wondering whether it was going to be a bit of a revelatory thing, whether I was going to come back to it and go, ooh, it's actually, I missed, maybe I didn't quite get this, but I did get this back then. It was exactly the same. It's just a bit of a fun little arcade blast, but without the arcade heritage. So it feels like £9 for a non-license, which seems a bit much.
Yeah, agree.
But it looks nice. It moves nice. It's well programmed. It sounds nice. The music, as you said, is burbly Hubbard. Is the best I could sort of say about it.
Yeah, it's lively enough.
It has all the constituent parts. It just needed some kind of target. It needed an objective.
Yeah.
That's what it's missing. Is there anything more to say on it? I think that's about it.
No.
It's like the game. There's little more to it. So there you go. That's Shockway Rider. Needed 86% is high for that game, I think.
It is a bit, I think, for that.
I think they were sort of marketing on its originality and the fact that it was something new and different, weren't they? I think that's where they were coming at it from.
The review said that in the comments, from the reviewers kind of implied that, but yeah.
There you go. That's Shockway Rider. All right. But, it's all right. There you go. Let's move along. Let's move along quickly. To our second game. So what is our second game? We were in budget. There's a lot of budget titles this week. We could have done a Cheapest Creepers, but we're not. We're just chucking them in because they're all over the place. So this is a £2.99 game. This is called, what is this called? This is supposedly, this is in the magazine as Cyber 1. Supposedly on the case it says Cyber 1, but in the game it's called Cyborg, which is strange. I can only presume that there is an actual game called Cyborg coming out quite soon. So maybe they didn't want the clash.
Unknown. I've looked into it. I don't know anything.
So yeah, I could never find anything. It's just down as Cyborg, whatever. So what is Cyber 1 or Cyborg, whatever you want to call it? This is 3 types of games in this one, and I don't know why it was called Cyborg in the game, because do you actually play a cyborg at all in this game?
No.
No, I don't think you do you? It's like, no. And at least Cyber 1 feels like maybe a call sign for your spaceship or a name for it, like the Vic Viper or something. So I could understand that, but Cyborg, no. Anyway, what is this? The game starts oddly with the theme from Battlestar Galactica on the title screen.
Oh, no, stupid.
We've seen this before in Strange Games, haven't we? They just use a tune from something.
Weird.
All right, okay. This is a space. So what this is, it starts with, it's a space shooter. So you are actually, the tune isn't terrible. It's not a terrible version of it. It's recognizable. So then you press fire and you're patrolling a huge starship, maybe a battle star, perchance. And essentially what you have to do is you've got to clear it of enemies that have beset you. So this first section is a multi-directional shooter. You've seen these before. Z, Parallax, take your pick, Time Pilot. It's one of them. So you can rotate your ship and fly in 360 degrees. There is kind of something weird though. I'll come to that in a moment. Shooting enough of the enemies are just random and rather wobbly. You shoot enough of those wobbly baddies and it brings on the boss ship, which you also have to shoot, which just seems to randomly move about and is not a particularly good sprite. It's a multicolored thing. If you manage to kill that, because well done, and then you have to head down a tunnel and it tells you to beware of the mega speed, which is a strange phrase. I don't know what a mega speed is, but essentially what this is a very simple right to left scrolling tunnel sequence. You have to navigate your ship down a narrow tunnel that goes up and down slow and gets faster and faster, the mega speed, I guess. Faster and faster and faster and faster. It's quite tricky because it does get very fast. But if you manage to get through that, which is tricky, but you can do it. If you get beyond that, well, the problem I had there is that I don't know if an issue with the bug with the game, but my game just crashed, which I was annoyed with because it took a few goes to get through that bloody tunnel. So what I was presented was I was controlling a white sprite of some description, maybe the titular cyborg from the top, and there was things moving around, but I couldn't move. I could animate it, so it was animating, but it wasn't moving. So I don't know whether the game had crashed or there was a bug in the version we were using or whatever. But I didn't particularly want. I didn't care because the problem is this is not a good game, even for £3. The shooting in the first section, as I noticed, is very wobbly and erratic, and I hated the way you turn after you face a direction. So you've used left and right to rotate and up and down to go faster, and you turn, but you'll still keep going in the same direction you were for about half a second or so, and it just felt bad. I know I can kind of see what they're going for, but it just doesn't work. In these kind of arcadey blasters, you need instant reactions. Otherwise, you just I don't like it. So, and there's a radar view as well at the bottom of the screen in that first section. The top half is taken up with the sort of outside the battleship, whatever it is, and you scroll around in sort of a limited area. It does wrap around, but you're going around it. But there's a radar at the bottom. But the enemies that appear on it are just dots and they wobble around all over the place. There's no kind of sense that they're moving smoothly. The tunnel section is just dull. There's nothing to do. Just move up, down one section a bit to avoid the walls that are coming at you very fast. And it's just a memory test. So once you get it, you'll get it. You know where to be. There's no trial and error. So I don't know what the third section, but it didn't look good. I didn't find any of this enjoyable or fun in any way. And there are better shooters out there than this. And even £3 this is, and 3 little mini games. I'd still rather play something else than this. Because no one, the shooter's rubbish. No one wants that tunnel section, and I don't know what the last section was. It's a bit of a mess, I thought. None of the sections are very good, and the visuals and sounds are uninspired. Just nope. This was a big nope from me. Did you enjoy your time piloting the Cyber One as a cyborg?
I don't have a lot to add to that, in all honesty. No, I didn't enjoy it. I like the Battlestar Galactica music, because I like the Battlestar Galactica music. But This is a 3-in-1 shooter in the sort of partially the Z vein. The side-scrolling bit was stupid because you have to just avoid stuff. The Tunnel of Death. Sorry, I meant to call it by its official name. I found the whole thing a little bit silly. The third level where you've got to find the hidden star, I'm like, just don't. If I'm hunting for hidden stars, it makes me feel a bit uneasy. So I thought the graphics throughout this were blocky. They're quite unimaginative. The scrolling is quite good, and some of the mechanics, actually wrong, some of the techniques of the game are quite nice. The scrolling speed is nice. The graphics are, albeit that they're quite blocky and unimaginative, move around pretty, a decent click. I quite like the way it controlled in part 1, in the terms that you could sort of, when you were flying around, you could sort of move your joystick, and it kind of almost like a skid logic.
Oh, did you like that? I hated that.
I quite liked it, but it's not dissimilar to other games we've tried, where it's forward to speed, down for slow down, and you're moving around. But it just felt like it was a bit more responsive. It might have just been the mood I was in that day, but I felt that it was generally just quite boring. But I thought, could my boring and my general sense of dreariness be offset by the fact that this wasn't full price? Okay, maybe a bit. But I don't know. I felt like at 29%, I don't know if that were being a little bit harsh. It didn't look that bad. It's not terrible. It's not great. But is it kind of middle of the road dull? Well, it does exist in the 40 to 50% mark, really. I felt like this was being a bit kicked in the knackers. But it's not the worst thing at this price. It's certainly not the best. It's just kind of a bit empty of anything that you'd really want to go through. So dull, uninspired, $2.99s with a $2.99.
The Battlestar theme.
Yeah, and there is that. I quite like, and it was quite a good version, so that's fair. That's fair for me.
It's like your Pavlov reaction, isn't it? Sort of thing. If you play, you're not going to like this sort of thing. I'm just going to put the Battlestar theme on, just in the foreground. It puts you in an instant good mood. I know you too well. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a great theme, that. But
I know. It's what I always play to you before I tell you bad news. It puts you in the right kind of mood.
Honestly,
you're like,
if I'm going out in the to the pearly gates in some kind of funeral, I want to go out to the old Battlestar Galactica theme, I think.
You're going to go out in that pose as well. Best death ever.
Yes. I think. I don't know about having a Conquest game playing in the background, but anyway, no. or a cyber one. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it's just, what this game is $2.99's worth of whatever it is. The trouble is, whatever it is isn't very interesting. So sad.
No, it's nice tune.
Is it the first of the budget bastards? I think it is.
Yeah,
because this is the Battle of the Bastards, and that is the first one of the lot.
It really is.
Come and see.
There is more to come, for sure.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, I'm guessing maybe what's up next might be in with a shout.
Maybe.
So let's move on. Graham, you can tell us all about your Conquest.
Yes, I can, actually. So Conquest is a Mastertronic game. It was a 6502 conversion by Transform. I'm sensing that Transform either didn't do a lot of 6502 conversions, or this was the only one they ever did. Probably because
Hope so.
It's not what you'd call great. So beneath all of this logic is a 15% rated $2.99 game. So that doesn't shout this is a quality product. It's described. Now, what's interesting about this actually is the instructions in the cassette inlay compared to what you actually get. Because some of the criticism that I've seen of this is that the instructions are vague. Now, I'm not one to make judgments, but they are as vague as fuck. So
really?
Yeah. So I'm gonna describe some of them to you. So
good.
So this is described as a fully animated 3D icon-driven graphic adventure. Yeah, I would hesitate to say yes. I'm not so sure about that. So in the game, you play somebody called Oscar, and you've moved into a new castle. And when you move into your castle, you discover that it already has residents in the shape of the demon Grell and his dastardly minions. The demon Grell. Grell's there. This is Grell's place. Get out. Grell lives here. Grell and his minions. So, and this is a quote. So, to quote, save your soul from the torment of walking through the fires of hell for all eternity, unquote, which I felt was a bit strong, considering that it's lighthearted.
You forgot to mention that when you were showing me around, estate agent.
You've got to get rid of Grell and said people, because clearly if you side yourself with Grell, you are welcoming the idea of walking through the fires of hell for all eternity. It just seems very extreme. It's the extreme end of punishment for buying a castle, I think.
It sounds to me like he's not read the buyer's pack before he's bought it. He's done that thing on Homes Under the Hammer that they're always advised not to do.
Needs some slight work on the foundations, and you are going to traverse the pathways of hell for all eternity. Oh, it seems a bit like, why would you do that anyway?
Incumbent squatters in the demon form.
So the idea is you've got to get rid of Grell and company. Now, the instructions for this game are really bad. And I mean that in the instructions that are in the cassette inlay, because they don't really help you. In fact, I would argue they actually make things worse. So they describe some of the hazards, like the snakes, which, by the way, I didn't encounter once. But they also give really vague, stupid notions like, quote, different weapons will kill different aliens, unquote. Now, there's never a mention of aliens in this game at all.
It's gone terror of the deep on
I'm not sure why. This is honestly a direct quote from the tape inlay. I don't quite get what that means. But then after that, it says, and, quote, the globe of invulnerability can hold up to 9 items. That's in the hints section. I don't know what the globe of invulnerability is.
I did find that.
Well, it can hold 9 items. It's good that it holds 9 items. That will help you in your quest for whatever the you're meant to be doing in this game. Also, so there's icon controls, and these icon controls have 2 rows. The top row is a graphic display of the items you have picked up using the object pointer. The bottom row shows the icons that are used with the object pointer. I've just written, what the hell is this nonsense? What is it? And it says, and I quote, this is another quote, for example, to examine an object that you are carrying, you must have the object pointer pointing to that object and the action pointer pointing to the examine icon. Then press the action key. It's just... So the confounding instructions aside, I don't think anyone's ever got through to figure out what the hell you go. The game itself is just basically a really crap Attic Attack clone. It's a Spectrum conversion, obviously, and it's a really bad Spectrum. And now this would be a bad Spectrum game because it's a bad Attic Attack clone. So it's set in exactly the same kind of look and feel as Attic Attack. So the Attic Attack kind of / Saberwolf, but more Attic Attack kind of dungeon layout, doorways that are kind of in a top-down 3D-ish view. You run around those, and in Attic Attack, you would shoot the enemies with your weapon and try and collect stuff. Well, you don't have a weapon in this, so you're just going to run around not shooting.
Yep.
And just you kind of run around trying to get through doorways, which you can't always quite get through. So it makes very little sense. You run around picking things up, but you have no idea what they relate to, what they're meant to do, or why, because the instructions are so vague. So I'm not sure what you really have to do, nor is it explained. So the rooms are kind of all the same. They all look like Attic Attack kind of rooms in that 3D-ish view. The sprites are all very Attic Attack looking. You're a single color sprite. The background's a single color. The sprite's a single color. You run around in a single color way. It looks and feels like Attic Attack on the Spectrum without any of the fun, guidance, idea of game logic. It doesn't make any sense. It's just bad. It's bad. So this is $2.99. And even at $2.99, this is just rubbish. Why would you play this? I mean, there are other games of of this kind of type on the C64, which are way better. Now, they're just as vague, some of them, in the sense that, you are running around a maze of stuff, picking up stuff and putting down stuff and moving around. But at the very least, they've got the pace and the wherewithal and the graphics. This is just a bad Spectrum conversion of a game that clearly made no sense to anyone playing it, including those that wrote the instructions, because they don't make any sense. You have no idea what you've got to do. You have no idea what the end point is. You're running around, and when it says 3D icon-driven graphic, I don't know what that means. I don't understand what they're on about. The game they're describing is nothing like the game you play, and that for me is a big red flag. So this is just rubbish, more budget rubbish. Conquest. Con is the operative word there, I think.
Yeah.
But what about you?
Yeah. I'm not going to stray too far from that. So amazing. I didn't look at those instructions, but I may have to go and seek them out, or send me a link if you got that. Like, this is a game that wouldn't have looked out of place on the Spectrum in 1983. Is not really what you expect to be playing on the Commodore 64 in 1987. Single colour monstrosities wander around pseudo 3D rooms that lead to dead ends and pointless crap interactions. This is poor and seems like a game out of place on all levels. The graphics are rubbish. The sound is weak. Sound is really bad. Nothing, is it? It's just
just
that stupid,
crappy Spectrum sounds.
Yeah, sound is weak and the design is piss poor, and have been done way better by, on the C64 by Wizard's Lair ages ago. If you ever play this, go play Wizard's Lair.
I'm trying to think of.
The collision to get through the side doors is annoying.
Stupid.
Because you have to go right at the base of them, and it's just annoying. I found myself getting very annoyed with that very quickly. Having to micromanage an inventory as enemies bounce around the screen, constantly draining you of energy, is bad. Pressing the spacebar should have just switched you to the inventory and stopped the playing so you could inspect what you had and how to proceed. Yeah, just stop. You can't do this kind of fast-paced stuff while having to manage an inventory. Just no, it's just crap on many levels. It's just awful. Yeah, it is a con. This is, stupid. And it's as we stated, sort of thing, a good advertisement for always reading the buyer's guide when you're about to buy a house.
Yes.
Why would you buy a castle before heading there, sort of thing, and finding it's full of bloody demons?
Yeah.
It's a stupid premise.
Demon Grell. Don't mess with that guy.
Absolutely. And aliens.
Yeah. Well,
and don't forget,
they're only mentioned once.
Well, they only have to be mentioned once. It's still they're now part of the Conquest lore.
Honestly, that cassette inlay is such a misleading pile of crap. It made me laugh.
Yeah.
And it also got picked up on in, I think, Lemon 64 and a few of the reviews, and they were like, what the hell is this game about?
No one knows.
Because it's not about what they say it is.
No, it's not. It's not.
No.
What it is, though, is crap.
Yep.
So let's spend no more time with Conquest and move on. We've got a couple more games still to go through. Then we're back, and so let's move on. All right, so what we've got next, that was Conquest. So let's move in. Our next one is not a budget title. It's an £8 title. This is a game called Sunstar. Why is this called Sunstar? I couldn't quite figure out why. I don't know. Maybe I missed something, but who knows? Anyways, if space is not strange enough, an alien grid system has materialized in a remote region of space, and you've been sent off to investigate this grid system. So when nearing this object, your hyperdrive kicks in for reasons and launches you into the nearby grid, which starts the game itself. Okay, so this starts quite weirdly, sort of thing. I'll describe the game because this is an odd game. The screen in the game is split into two. You've got the play area at the top and the UI at the bottom. There's no more story than what I've already said. So the UI is at the bottom. The main game it's like a 3D view of a grid. So Grid Runner, whatever. Imagine one of them, but in 3D. Beam Rider, I suppose, something like that. But this is the proper 3D grid. You can turn left and right. So you've got a 3D view of this grid, which you can move around freely and at different speeds by pressing up and down to speed up and slow down. You can turn 90 degrees to the right or left as well. By moving left and right. So a way to think about this would be like a 3D version of the bikes from Tron, I guess. So if you imagine if you were in the actual bike itself, seeing it and snapping left and right at 90 degrees, that's kind of what this is, but it's on a grid. So moving around this grid, because the graphics are perfunctory, there's nothing much to it. There's the grid, and then some of the grid squares are filled in. Some of the grid squares are white, and these all move around. So these are the kind of enemies or energy grids that you've got to sort of collect. So those are white squares, and you can fire, and when you fire, you see a shot colouring the grid in front of you. If you shoot the white squares, this transforms them into energy crystals, which you need to collect. They're green, so square to green, they still move about. So you've got to try and collect them, move into them and collect them. If you collect 10 of them, you can get into the hyperdrive cell. So this is a sort of an area of the grid that is blocked off by a door, which sort of moves around. So you have to time your getting through this into the right point. Kind of remind me of one of those shoot 'em ups like Z, I think, where you had to sort of shoot the middle bit out. Once you get in there, you can shoot the hyperdrive cell, and then you move on to the next grid, which is differently laid out. So there are wall stuff. Anyway, it's just confusing, this game. The UI at the bottom has 3 sections to it. It has info in the middle section. It has information regarding your energy, the number of cells you have, and things like that. So you don't want to run out of energy, because you run out of energy, it's game over. There is a full view of the grid itself in the bottom right of the UI. So at the bottom right of the screen, you can see the whole grid, and you can see the walls, because there are walls that you don't want to bash into, and some of the it's sectioned off, so you have to navigate around the walls and things like that. Kind of like a maze, but it's not a maze, not because it's not. There's just bits that you've got to go around. In the bottom left of the grid, bottom left of the UI is a more close-up view of your surroundings, which shows you in the middle and anything moving around, but it's a bit more close up, so you can kind of think none of this is any use sort of thing, because you're just constantly looking at the grid actually moving, because it moves really quite fast. So you need to avoid crashing into the walls or the white squares. The white squares, you've got to shoot them. If you crash into the walls or you crash into the white squares, and they will crash into you as well, because they move a bit randomly, you lose energy, you run out, that's game over, done. So it's quite perfunctory. The front end is just like, I think it just says press space to start or press run stop to start or something. You press it, you get a little intro sequence of your hyperdrive kicking in this sort of 3D thing, and then you're into the grid and it's gone, you're on, you're off. Then this is, it's quite a well-made game, I thought. This runs pretty smoothly, and everything works in its kind of own idiosyncratic way. You shoot the white cells, you pick up the green ones, you get enough energy bits, you move on to the next ones. There's nothing inherently bad here. The 3D visuals are nice, they're fast, they're snappy, you can slow down and speed up. You need to be quite quick. The 90-degree shifting is quite nice, kind of in also Ball Blazer, I suppose, is another sort of reference point in that 90-degree snapping around left and right. But in this, you control it. The main issue with this is kind of like what we said about Shockway Rider. And so I'm quite surprised to see this only get 56% and Shockway Rider get 80 odd, because I'd put these kind of similar-ish, maybe a little bit less, but there's a lack of variety in the design. You don't really ever change from what you're kind of doing in that first grid to as you move along. You just shoot the white crystals, you try and kind of, at least that's what I found. It's quite hard to actually get anywhere, because you seem to run out of energy quite quickly, and it's tricky to navigate the grid with the white squares random movingly about, and then the crystals doing the same thing, because everything moves at quite such a pace that it's hard. Because you obviously move at 90-degree turns, moving at 90 degrees means you've kind of got to work out where a white square is and then get alongside it and turn it. But by that point, it's moved up a grid square, so you need to turn right and left again quickly, and it can get a bit, your brain starts to go, I can't quite work out what's going on here. So all this is all you do. And the problem with that is it just never raises this above perfectly programmed average. There's a really nice idea for something here, and I think with a bit more consideration of what else could have been done, maybe more varied enemies, more varied wind conditions, stuff moving around, things to collect, something or other, this could have been actually a really good game. But as it stands, it's like what we said about a few games. This reminds me of that really good 3D shooter that was done by Skyrunner.
Yeah.
So it's a really nice tech demo looking for a more fully realized game. We've seen a few of these where they've got some really nice tech, and clearly the competent programmers behind it who's done something nice, but needed someone to come in and go, well, that's great. What's the game? Where is it? What else are we doing? Because that's going to get old quickly. That's all you're doing. And I get it with these 30-odd-year-old games, but at this point, I think we need, 1987, we're seeing games with more to them. And I think this is one of those games that with a bit more thought, consideration for its actual overall design, could have been really good. And that's a bit of a shame, because what is here is well programmed and technically very clever. But I would just wish there was more to it. That was my take on this. What did you think to the oddly named Sunstar?
Yeah, it's Glenn G. Kasim, wasn't it? CRL.
Yes.
There's things to like here. It's weird. This game is weird. There's no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. It is a weird sort of 3D, almost like you say, a light cycles sort of 3D Tron thing. There's a frantic pace to it. The 3D visuals are pretty interesting. I like the way it moves at a pace, and it controls okay. The game itself isn't of it isn't terrible. The way it does the graphics and everything else, it's really fast and it feels like you're flying along and you're careering along a thing. It's just a bit incomprehensible. All of it's a bit incomprehensible. It's a lot of flashing lights and flashing visuals and movement around and diving about. It took me a while to figure out how to get the game started because it wasn't immediately obvious. So just sort of flashing visuals and sort of sounds at me.
Yeah.
And as soon as you start, you're off at a breakneck speed, flying about. I like the styling of it. I like the tone of this. I just think this is it sort of fell back on its central zoomy 3D effect and lacked anything that made it a really coherent game. I have to say also, I think maybe it was just a bit too quick for my slow brain. It moved at a real pace. I mean, don't get me wrong, this game moves fast and the graphics are fast. When you shoot, when it shoots in that 3D way down like that sort of tunnel effect, sort of 3D effect, those things are really good. To the programmer's credit, the whole thing moves at a real pace. It just feels a little bit like an incomprehensible journey into something I'm not quite sure what I was doing. And for that reason alone, and it didn't deviate from that. And there's a game that's similar in the way that it's a very fixed focus thing. This almost feels like a game that was a bonus level between something else. That there could have been more to this. If this was the bonus level and there was more of a game around it, then it might have held more coherence, but because it didn't have those things, it just felt like a 7.95's worth of average, which is a shame. I don't think, actually on reflection, I don't think this is an average game. There are really great things about the way it looks and the graphics and everything else. I think what it is an average game design because there's nothing really to it. I think they just had a nice programming idea and somebody put some tech demo together and it just didn't really get out of the starting gates more than anything that was beyond that. So that's what I thought. Yeah,
well, yeah, it's pretty much what I said, really. Yeah, I think we're in agreement there. It's just it's looking for a designer's touch. It's a very good tech demo, but it's looking for a designer. It's a bit of a shame because this could have been another something that you kind of come across and you look first impressions are this is interesting, and you're right when you first play it you are a bit going through the endless whatever it is in 2001. But once you start to get your head around it a little bit, you see it, but then you realise, that's all there is. Oh, okay. All right. But, could have been a bit nice and it could have been a bit deeper, just something more to it. Bit of a shame. But hey-ho. I think 56% is harsh in giving Shockway Rider 80-odd. I think there's parallels between the pair of these.
I think Shockway Rider is more instantly playable. I think this isn't.
I think, I wouldn't put this up with it, but I think that I think they share similar faults.
No, I think the score is about right. I think Shockway Rider, because it has that almost Arcadian sprite logic to it. So you've got a person sprite that you move around. Because when you're in 3D space, it's very difficult to grasp the central premise of who you are and where you're at. If it's at breakneck speed from the get-go. With a Shockway Rider, you've got a thing to control. And I think the problem with this game is that you don't feel like you're in control of anything, really, right away.
No, that's a fair point. All right, there you go. That's Sunstar. We've got one more left. And it's a revisit to a property that we've already covered. What could that be? Let's move along and find out. Graham, we looked at the UK version. Was that last month?
It was last episode, I think.
Was it? Okay, because in this one, you're going to tell us all about the US version of Aliens.
Yes, the Activision version of Aliens.
The Activision version, yeah.
So this was created by Steve Cartwright, Glyn Anderson, Peter Kaminsky, and Gene Smith, with the music by Russell Lieblich. So what this is really a game made by the guy that made Hacker and Hacker 2. Under an Activision license around Aliens. And so they've opted for a very different idea around how to create an Aliens game. The Electric Dreams version of Aliens was very much based around surviving an alien attack, and you are different characters and you have to rotate on the spot, it seemed, and navigate your way around that world. Okay. The argument here is that they've gone for a more movie-led sort of cinematic style approach to the actual gameplay, and I actually have to say I think it works better. So there's I think essentially six sections to this game, and you have to basically work your way through the sections. So Section 1 is a landing of the drop, and they are all based around parts of the movie Aliens. So in Section 1, Part 1, you have to land the dropship on LV-426. In the next section, you've got to guide the Marines around to try and find a way out from the cooling tower to escape to the APC. In the third section, you've got to escape the med lab, where you're being attacked by aliens and you've got to wait for a door to be cut through so you can escape. In the section after that, you're in an air duct and you've got to try and navigate your team around through the air ducts to try and find your way back to the dropship. After that, you've got to go in as Ripley and rescue Newt and then make your way out past the alien queen. And then the final sequence of this is that you've got to fight the alien queen and obviously win the game. So the idea, I actually think the idea of working your way through mini game versions of those sequences in the film isn't bad. I quite liked that. I quite liked the way that worked. I think it works as a better idea of an Aliens game than the Electric Dreams one does, in that it plays out one scene over a complex array of repeated backgrounds. This one at least has variety, and the way you play out the things is kind of different in each one. So, that said, this is intercut with semi-scanned in movie images. Now, I don't know if these are images that have been scanned and redrawn or whether they are redrawn bitmap images of the film Aliens. But there's certain little clips and sequences of images that and film dialogue that appear in this all the way through, which really, because it's from Aliens, really, and because it has that look of Aliens, really lands it in the Aliens space. So right the way through this game, because it has actual dialogue from the film, because it leans on real characters and real situations, and because it has that thematic, it really feels like an Aliens game. And I think that's important, because if you substituted the aliens out of the Electric Dreams alien game and just put any other alien in there, I don't think it would have felt like an Aliens game, other than the fact that it had names in like Ripley and Gorman and stuff. This one, as it has its heart as an Aliens game, because it's really deeply enriched with the film stuff. So that thematic and that look and feel and all of that tonality is great. But what about the game itself? How does the game work? Well, that's where some of these problems begin with this. The mini games that you play are a bit hit and miss. So the first game, which is where you've got to land the dropship, is taken from a section of the film where there's a small, almost vector-style circle that you've got to fly your ship through. Now, there's loads and loads of games subsequently where you have to sort of navigate your vehicle through a hooped series of gates. And I can think of at least some Mario games that have done it. There's loads of games that have done this kind of logic where you've got to navigate your way through that. In this game, you're flying towards a planet, so you get this series of dotted hoops, and there are certain parts of certain colours of these dotted hoops you've got to fly through to, a bit like if you were on a ski slalom. There's certain gates you've got to hit and get through. There's certain ones you can afford to miss, but you can't miss too many. The problem here is that this is incredibly hard. The sequence goes on for ages and ages. And flying through these things is fine if they were all in a reasonable direction, because you control this with your joystick, so you're sort of up and down, left and right. You're navigating the front part of the dropship as it flies through space towards a planet, and you're navigating it through what is essentially these sort of small circles. Problem is, the circles distribution gets quite wild and quite varied, and unless you have a real strong directional compass, I think you're going to fail, because it lasts for ages, this section. And it's really, really hard. So as you fly through this, you get this really weird, almost surfing game style music. The music's completely wrong for this section of the game. It feels really wrong. Out of all the sections of the game, this feels like visually it's the most Aliens-like, but thematically and everything else, unlike Alien. It doesn't quite work, and it goes on for too long. So if you can make it through that, make it through all the various tunnel sequences, tunnel sort of flags, and you get through these little hoops, and you get through those. If you get through that, you get a bit more movie dialogue, and you move on to the next section. The next section is actually a part of the film where, at this point, the Marines have gone into the infrastructure of LV-426, and they've found all of the various people cocooned in the cooling tower, and they've been attacked by aliens, and you've got to get out. So you've got to guide 4 of your Marines out from this maze using the function keys to switch between the views of the 4 Marines. And the top left is your sort of map, sort of visual view where you've got a sprite that you control. You can shoot and strafe. The strafing part is actually quite nice. If you start shooting and move left and right, they stay in that direction and strafe the enemy. It's a nice touch, because you will get attacked by enemies. On the top right, you've got your sort of a motion scanner, motion tracker, which gives you an indication of the direction, and I say indication of the direction the aliens are coming. But in reality, there's just aliens coming. One of the problems here is that doesn't equate to the direction they actually come from at you. And then underneath that view, you have the 4 Marines that you can switch between, and their kind of view, which is similar to the view that's in the Electric Dreams version. We have the kind of vital statistics, the heart rate and all of that, and then like an image. When it flashes red, it means that there's aliens at that particular view, so you've got to flip between them. The idea of this all is that you guide them through the map and you guide them back to the APC. So you've got to guide these 4 Marines back. This is insanely difficult to do. This is really, really, really hard because you get constantly attacked by aliens. You've got to flick between the screens. You've got a limited amount of ammo. This is tough. This is a tough proposition for anybody. So even if you do get through that, the next section after that is that you've got to escape from the med lab. So it skips to another scene a bit further on in the film. On this particular section, you are on the right-hand side with a flamethrower. Aliens are running at you across the screen from the left, and you've got to kind of either burn them to death with the flamethrower or ward them off where they back off to give you a little bit of time so you can navigate and shoot them. All the while in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a cutting tool being sort of cut through a steel door, and it's slowly working its way round to try and cut its way out of this door, or cut its way in or weld it shut. I'm not sure which it is. But either way, you basically are buying time. You've got a limited amount of Marines that can go through. So many aliens can get past you and so many can't. Obviously, as time progresses, the aliens that are running at you get faster and faster and faster, to the point where, in actuality, I think some of them are impossible to get past. There's some of them you simply can't. So you have to sort of accept that and just try and get through this particular sequence. Assuming that you do that, you're then in quite a neat sequence, actually, which is in the air ducts. Now, in the film, this is after that sequence where you're Ripley and Newt and a select few of Marines. In this one, you've got all the Marines, but you don't have that in the actual film. But you've got to try and navigate your way through a maze-like air duct, basically trying to navigate your way through to the APC at the uplink tower. And you're sort of going through a lot of air ducts, and there's aliens attacking you at this point, and you can actually set aside Marines. You're basically Ripley and Newt as characters surrounded by Marines, and you can leave Marines behind who will detonate grenades and blow up in the air ducts and kill the aliens following you around. The idea is that you've got to work your way through this complex maze, and it is complicated, and I would again argue very difficult, in order to get to the next section. So when you get to the APC, unfortunately during that particular sequence, Newt, the little kid in the film, has been captured by an alien and taken away and been cocooned or whatever they call that. So in this particular section, it's the point in the film where you have to go back and rescue Newt. So the top left view that was in the level 2 was of the Marines becomes you and Ripley in the sort of same alien landscape, being attacked by aliens, and you can shoot them in the same way. Top right is your tracker to find Newt, so you have to follow the directions, north, west, south, mostly south and west, I think. Try and find Newt as you go through. When you find Newt, she's cocooned and you release her, and then you've got to find your way back to the lift. If you do that, obviously, like the film, you're going to run into the alien queen, the alien eggs, and there's a whole sequence of events that have to happen in order for you to sort of try and escape. You've got a time limit. Pretty exciting. It's one of the best levels in the game. And in actuality, you could have almost made the entire game built around that particular bit. That's the best bit of the game, best bit of this so far. Really does feel like you're in that kind of aliens landscape. The sound effects, the aliens attacking you and everything else, it works really well. And the final sequence is the alien queen fight. So you get a nice mini sort of sequence from the movie with some nice screen grabs of Ripley in the power loader sort of image, the classic get away from her, you bitch image. We've all seen it a million times. And you've got to sort of bash the alien queen about with your sort of robo claws, for want of a better description. When you do that over a period of time, you can then grab it, throw it down the airlock. Everyone's happy. Queen's down the airlock, and the game's well on its way to being complete. So there's a number of really interesting things about the way this game is constructed. You're playing through the Aliens film scenes. That is in of itself is an interesting thing, an interesting game mechanic, which many games later come back to do. Not just in the C64, but later down the line, we see games where the film is played out through a variety of its scenes. Some of the scenes work, some of them don't, but they're all thematically linked, and they're all better than the Electric Dreams game, I have to say. Graphically, this all feels nice. Some of the graphics inside of the sequences where you're running around a maze are a little bit samey, but you're getting attacked by aliens. It's very difficult, but you do get attacked by aliens. They look like aliens. You look like the characters. The running around, shooting, and the strafing bit, it could have been on a bigger screen real estate for me, but it's still quite nice. It's a pity that the motion tracker things don't quite function in the way that they actually do in the film, but they do work better here than they did in the Electric Dreams version, and it does feel like you're progressing through a game. When you finish a level, by the way, in this, you get a code. So when you get that code, you can start from that level. This is a disc-based game. There's a lot. Obviously, each of these is an individual load. It's not one load like the Electric Dreams one was. This is more loads. And when you finish a level, you get a code for the next level. So you can start there. So you can always start off at that level. So there is a nice feel of progression through this. There's some nice details here. The graphics, I think, from the film that are in here are quite nice. All the power loader and the visuals, albeit that they're kind of weird, digitized-ish versions of what they are. They do look like they're the part, and it makes you feel like you're in an Aliens game. Music aside, and the sound effects are fine. The music's just weird and not from the film Aliens at all. There's some details here that are nice. It's really, I can only imagine this game is ridiculously impossibly difficult to do. I mean, I was lucky that I had level codes, so I could type in the code and start from that level and just, try my best. It didn't last long in some of these levels. They're so hard, especially some of the maze one type ones. Even the initial level of going through the tunnel is one of the hardest out of all of them. And they just get harder and harder. I like some of the parts. I like the Marines and the complexity of the fighting. I like the way you can strafe. There's some nice graphic details. But are you ever going to get there? And one of the key things about a game of this type is you've got to feel like you're going to be able to beat the aliens. If you can't have that feeling after level 1 or 2, why would you continue on? Because you're just going to feel browbeaten and difficult. And I'm not sure that there's enough variety in gaming there to make people really want to continue right the way through to the end. I did. I persisted with it because once you know the tricks and you've got the codes to get to the levels, you're onto a winner. But I think there's a good game in here. There's a nice thematic, and it really links into the film Aliens, and I like that about it. And it is a series of mini games, maybe, but are the mini games too hard? Well, I think they are, and I think that is gonna impede your progress in this game and really affect your enjoyment. But what about you?
Yeah. I think we're on different planets. You may be on LV426. I think I'm blown up in the Nostromo at this point. I didn't like this at all. I really didn't. I thought it's a laudable attempt to bring the entirety of the film. That's what's quite, I appreciate that, to bring into the C64. But I just thought that's all great. I think the weird, well, not weird, but the cut scene at the beginning where they're talking about, it's just another bug hunt, done with that bitmap screen and the comic bit at the top, the comic text at the top sort of thing and all that. And the weird, conversations in the beginning to hide the loading screens and things that go through. That's all right. And like you said, the power loader stuff, all good. All the bits around it, fine. I didn't like a single one of the mini games, and so in that respect, I can't. Nothing appealed to me. I thought like you said, the opening in the pipe 5x5 section was just ridiculously hard. It's just, and it goes on forever. It goes on for ages. It's like, it felt to me like as punishing as that opening section. And maybe it's us and we're old and we don't have good reactions. I get it, but at least there is a code to get past it. That's handy, so that's good. It reminded me, of the not quite as hard, but almost up there with the opening section to Escape from Singe's Castle, the bloody rocks, that kind of thing. It's that kind of logic again. I didn't understand, and this is just to harken back to what you did in the hacker games. Like, you have to identify the aliens' paraphernalia. Kind of weird. I didn't understand the point of that. Did you? I don't know. Did it serve any point or purpose or any way through? Was it a copy protection thing? I just thought it was maybe just a weird thing. I just didn't think any of them played well. I thought the Marines looked, the actual graphics in that maze section, where you're going along, the spot effects were dreadful. The graphics were weedy sprites. I think, the Marines, yeah, okay, the aliens, yeah, the strafing's all right and things like that. But I managed to get one through to the power loader, so I did manage to get out of that section. So I did get through. But then that next section, where you're just on the right and aliens are running in from the left on those tracks, whatever, like you said, it's just impossible. And it kind of is, they're just waiting there in a tunnel waiting to be picked off. It's a bit odd. There's ways and ways of doing this, and I get what they've gone for, but I just didn't find any of the mini games enjoyable. And I think that's whether you like the Electric Dreams one is by the by. That has a central premise and sticks to it and just does the one thing. Whether it's good or bad is put that to one side. That's down to your own interpretation, your own preference, I think. I just thought this was a whole lot of good presentation, bad game. I didn't enjoy the games, and I think that's where it falls down. I get what you're saying about it feeling like Aliens because there's so much Aliens in there. Like, they've taken whole hog. They've taken huge chunks of dialogue, chunks of script. So I get all that, and that's laudable in the way that they've tried to attempt to translate the film into this. Oh, you play through sections of the Aliens game, and the way they've tried to sort of put them into some kind of game logic type thing, and try to make it all work. And I get it, and that's to their credit. They kind of pulled it up, but just none of them. I just didn't find any of them enjoyable, and that's where I landed. So I don't know. for me, it was just I don't know. It was all production over substance for me.
Yeah.
That's where I landed.
Well, I
so.
think at the very least, what it does is contextualize the idea of LV-426 and the aliens into something coherent. I like both versions, don't get me wrong. I like the Electric Dreams version for different reasons, and I like the Activision version. But the one thing that the Electric Dreams version lacked was a coherent link to the thematic of Aliens, of the film Aliens. It alluded to it more than it was direct. I think because this is direct, I think it's right in your face. You can't escape the idea that this is. I think that's to its credit. But like you say, there are issues with the mini games. There's no doubt about that. And the difficulty is, for me, a real blocker.
Yeah. Just they don't play very well. Just that actually when you're moving through the maze and at the second level, and then you just get your motion tracker all light up, and you just have to wait until they wander on and get level with them and shoot them until they're all gone, and then you can move on again. Try and find each other in the maze, and then moving through. It would have, I would have liked to, like I said in the Electric Dreams one. Once you've met up with a teammate, have one follow me. Things like that.
Yeah. No,
simple things like that where you
logic that isn't there. There's no doubt about that.
Which would have made it more, rather than having to flick back 2 screens to bring him forward, 2 screens to bring her forward. And it's like, oh, okay, it's all right. As I said, it's all presentation. 66% is, I think, bang on for this because it's all show for me.
It is.
It's all surface, and I don't think the actual mini games themselves, they're just, I can see that they're okay, they work, and the whole thing works, but I didn't really find any of them interesting. And I think that may be what you're alluding to I think the difficulty slide was is out of whack.
I think there's the difficulty side, but the one thing I would put aside from this, just as a and it's unique to this game really, I think, is that you have this Activision released version, and there is also the Electric Dreams version. And I think from a consumer point of view, where do you go with that? What do you do with that? I think that this is a weird thing to release. It's a little bit of a kick in the knackers for the people that worked on the Aliens Electric Dreams version, because that was a licensed version as much as this is a licensed version. I don't quite get the motivation of releasing 2 game licenses for the same thing. Yes, there's differences between the games, but at the end of the day, on a shelf, Aliens and Aliens are going to be sat side by side. They are in the alphabetic column, and I just think to myself, what was the marketing and production motivation for Activision to release that game, knowing that Electric Dreams, and they gave the license, must have given it, or at least given permission to Electric Dreams to release that. I don't quite get what's going on there.
This was probably maybe, and I don't know, but I don't ever remember seeing this version over here in the UK. I remember seeing the Electric Dreams version on shelves.
Well, it must have been here because Zapped reviewed it.
Well, they did, yes. I'm not saying they didn't, but I don't remember ever seeing it in like Boots or anywhere like that when we were time. I remember seeing the Electric Dreams one, and I remember playing the Electric Dreams one. I'd never played this one before, and that may be because it's disc-based.
The only thing I can go to is, I remember renting this from J&M Software in Grimsby, and that was when I rented the tape version, I got the Electric Dreams version. Yeah. When I rented the disc version, I got the Activision version, and maybe that's a separation.
And I think that so if you think about the US and the UK, the US was a much more disc-based country.
Yes,
that they didn't, to tape stuff over there was mostly unheard of, is my understanding. They were mostly on disc over in the US, whereas in the UK we would tape people. And so I know some people had disc drives, I know, but the majority of people that I knew had tape. But if you think about, if you walked into Boots or you walked into WH Smith's, you didn't see many disc-based games, is what I'm saying, to buy.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, they were all tapes, weren't they, on
so
display,
the marketplace was tape.
Yes,
but in the US,
I think you're right.
My understanding is it's disc. So,
and that must be it.
Maybe Activision were just aiming at 2 different markets and making use of the disc-based space.
I think that there must have been. I just find it really odd. I mean, I suppose this is because it's the nature of it being a not single load. So
yeah. And don't forget, at this time, Activision are bloody weird. They're releasing things like Little Computer People, Alter Ego, Portal.
No, I get it. I get the idea of them being diverse. I just think it's a bit of a weird thing to have on the shelf at the same time. I mean, can you imagine releasing Whizball, the US version, at the same time as Whizball, or Green Beret, US version? It's just the idea, but I mean, as much as that's a weird extreme version that didn't happen, the idea of doing that is kind of strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a strange thing.
It is.
Disc version of Green Beret, what would that hold?
I'm trying to think if there's actually another license where there are completely different games for different regions.
Well, do you know what? The best part about this podcast is our amazing community of listeners. And I feel sure that our amazing community of listeners are going to dig out and find interesting things about that very premise, because it's something I'm quite interested in. So we'll put it to our Discord Illuminati, and we'll put it out there because they are a very, very brilliant bunch, and put it out there. But I'm very interested to think of other games that have aligned themselves to this kind of disc versus tape thinking, and also because I think it's fascinating, and also to see what people think about it.
I know of games that have had sort of content altered between regions, and not on the C64, but Silent Hill, the original Silent Hill springs to mind, where in the US, and I think the Japanese version, you're in the school, there are the little creatures that run around, are little sort of zombie babies, and they changed that for the EU version and just changed them into like little weird monstery type things. They're not babies, but so there are. I know of those kind of things, but I don't know anything on such a grand scale as this.
And I think it would become more extreme when you have to think of almost extreme versions of games. The only one that springs to mind immediately is the various versions of something like Mortal Kombat, where you have versions that have blood, versions that have green blood, versions that have this.
Yeah, but that's still just a beat. It's still the beat 'em up's still the same. It's just a blood change. That's like the babies. I'm on about a completely different game.
Yeah, but what I mean is, it's where you've got a company releasing a variation of a licensed idea with a difference of theme and thematic. Yeah. And I'm sure our amazing listeners will come up with other alternatives.
Oh, actually, Super Mario 2.
I'll take your word for that.
Well, Super Mario 2 in the Japan was a proper sequel to Super Mario Brothers 2, but they thought it was too hard for the rest of the world, so they got a game called what's it called? It's a completely different game, and then they re-thinged that with Mario sprites and released that to the rest of the world. A completely different game. So there's an example. Okay,
I'm thinking more like the Aliens Activision is a Cinemaware style version of a game. Are there non-Cinemaware style versions of a similar thing? And I'm sure we'll come across them, but interesting. It's an interesting little sojourn, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Let me just... hang on.
I'll give James Cameron a ring. I actually have his number on speed dial, so I'll just ring him. Hang on, I'm going to do it right now. 1 second. Just give me a second. Sorry, hang on.
Hang on.
Sorry, hang on. Hello, is that James? Hi. We're just talking about the... How did you know we were talking about the 60... No, I'm not blue. What? No. Orange. No. It's
Doki Doki Panic.
AD said Doki Doki Panic. No.
I did. So Doki Doki Panic was a game that was released in Japan, and then they reskinned it with the Mario skin and released it elsewhere as Super Mario Brothers 2, which was completely different to the original Super Mario Brothers 2 release in Japan.
Just 1 second, AD. I'm wearing blue underpants, James. Blue. I think blue. No, there's nothing creamy about that. Right, I'm off now. Goodbye. Sorry about that. I think I'm with you there. And James aside, I think we should just let's rely on our amazing listeners. The information you've got there with Mario and everything else. I think you're right. I think there is a case history here for this kind of thing. Is this the first thing? That's what I'm thinking. Is this the first time this has happened? There must be other things. Are we and also cross-platform as well? So it's easy to look at the C64 or the NES, SNES, whatever. But has this happened where the C64 version was this and the Spectrum version was that? Who knows?
Well, Cobra is an example of that.
Never ever say the word Cobra.
I won't. I think on that note, let's round off this part. Aliens is different. God, I'm lost. I'm completely lost. Where are we?
I think we're done for this particular part.
We're done for this section. Yeah. We'll be back after this break. We'll be looking at film and TV in May 1987. So for God's sake, please stick around.
The novel Escape from the Commodore 64 by David Hearn is out now. Growing up in the 80s is a chore for Sarah, who feels misunderstood by her parents and badgered by Reese, her bothersome brother who incessantly prattles on about his treasured computer games. When Reese tells her one of the games tried to pull him inside the computer, she laughs off his fanciful fib. She waggles the joystick to disprove his fairy tale and is pulled into the computer. Now trapped in games she'd never had any interest in playing, how can she possibly beat them? With the help of feisty Nell, another trapped player, can Sarah find her way back home, or is it game over? An evil madman, a hostile planet, bloodthirsty robots, a never-ending throng of karate experts, and relentless digital soldiers will do their best to ensure Sarah never escapes. Available from Amazon and all good online retailers, find out if there's a way out of the beige bread bin of betrayal for Sarah in Escape from the Commodore 64.
Hello, welcome back. Film and TV in May 1987. 'Twas a barren time. It was a barren month where we didn't have much to do, but hopefully the weather was all right so we could go out and play a bit. Or maybe we just played a lot of Shockway Rider. I don't know. Wasn't a lot to watch, I can tell you that. So who knows what was going on in film and TV. Let's have a look, shall we? Let's see what little delights we have going on. 3rd of May, we had the first of two series of groundbreaking youth television. Show Network 7 starts airing on Channel 4. It's shown live at Sunday lunchtime. There you go. That started.
Did you watch any of it?
I think I did. I think it was at the time sort of thing when I would have probably been interested in this. I was 15-year-old, so I would probably watch this. Yeah, it was Janet Street Porter created it once she and had Magenta Divine as one of the presenters. And
Good name.
She was always inherently very, very cool. Magenta Divine.
She was. It's a good name though. Magenta
Divine,
she had that
isn't
it?
Bob black haircut.
Yeah.
Bob black hair with sort of always wore sunglasses.
Yeah.
And I just remember it was a bit of a strange show. I think it was probably maybe a bit too old for me. I don't know, but I always kind of liked to watch it. But I remember nothing from it. I know it sort of led on to a lot of sort of other shows that kind of took a lot of influence from this, but I don't know what it was. Did you watch it much? Do you remember much of it?
I remember Dick Spanner, which was like a animated show that was on it. I have a feeling that Aeon Flux maybe was part of it, but I don't know for sure because that could have been something else. That was an animated show that later became a film with Charlene Theron. I genuinely don't remember a lot about it. I remember more the MTV. Well, I actually remember a lot more of the graphics and the styling and the way that the thematic of the show, which was very much based around the MTV styling. MTV at this time, this is pre all of the crazy reality show crap that MTV now is known for. This is pre any of that. So this is when MTV was around music and music videos and stuff like that. And so Network 7 borrowed a lot of its iconography and its TV graphics from that kind of idea of MTV. Now, I don't remember much about it other than the way it looked and its appeal. It didn't appeal to me directly, and it was on the wrong time for me because it was on Sunday lunchtime. Well, I was normally in bed at that point, so
That's true, you were.
Periodically I might wake up, and when I did wake up and put the TV on, it was something. There was that weird animated show Dick Spanner. I don't remember much about Dick Spanner either. I just remember the name and stuff like that. So it's a bit of a misnomer, a bit of an anomaly. The one thing I would say is I didn't have MTV. I've never had MTV until I was an adult and got Sky TV as an adult. As a teenager, I didn't have any access to anything other than the terrestrial TV stations. My mum and dad point blank refused to pay for a Sky dish, and they wouldn't have anything like that on the house. And so I enjoyed MTV from friends that did have the dish at the time, which was my friend Simon and co. And so he would record most of the output of that onto VHS tapes and bring them around for us to watch, which is kind of an alien idea. Now, this is the equivalent of sharing something via YouTube or TikTok, but he would come around and share these videos with us and we would watch them. So my understanding of the thematic of MTV was based from what I'd seen through VHS tapes recordings of MTV, and Network 7 was the closest I could have got to that, but it didn't connect because MTV didn't really connect with me, so that's the way it was.
No, I can understand that. I don't I mean, I remember it, remember watching it, but nothing rings a bell. They had regular programming segments. Flesh and Blood, it was a mini-series running 40 minutes. I mean, Dick Spanner, as you said. Room 113, I seem to remember, was a pre-recorded one-to-one psychological celebrity interview.
Don't remember
that
it.
Rings a bell. True or False shared a pre-recorded bizarre real-life story, and the following week revealed whether the story was true or false.
Okay.
In Series 2, viewers could voice their guesses via a phone poll. Film on 7 showed a short 1-minute film made by students at London International Film School. Those kind of things are quite innovative, I think, especially that last thing where you're giving students an opportunity to get your short films out on national broadcasting.
Unbelievable.
It's quite amazing, really.
Yeah. This was a remit for them. This was Channel 4's early days. Amazing things that Channel 4 did. They don't do it now.
No, well, they're not allowed, are they? They get booed off stage.
Exactly.
Boo earns.
Get off.
Going back to your comment about the VHS tapes, that's how we used to enjoy The Simpsons, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Every week, another friend would just bring the new episode of The Simpsons around yours usually on a Sunday night, I think, and we'd just sit there and laugh our heads off.
Well, it's easy to think that. I think the comforting thought of the mid to late 80s and then flow that through to the 90s is that everyone in the UK just got satellite dishes and enjoyed, Sky TV. That was not the case.
No, it wasn't.
It was expensive, and not everyone could afford it, and not everyone wanted it. And in fact, there was a bit of a backlash. My dad was a real anti kind of satellite dish, stroke satellite TV thing. He hated the idea of that. I pay a license fee for the BBC. Why the hell would I pay for anything else? That was his MO. And Sky TV, no matter what they dressed their programs like, was never going to be something he would partake in ever. And I didn't have the financial wherewithal or the credit capability or anything else to go and just get that off my own back. Nor could I have
We were at school, that's why.
Well, even just after school as a early teen. Remember, nowadays you have to go to school till you're 18, but when we were at school, when we left school at 16, you could have got a job.
Yeah.
But even then, the idea of thinking that I could get a satellite dish installed on my parents' home without their permission and just and them accept that was okay. It's just an anathema to anything that would stand in the real world. I would have been murdered and strangled and killed.
Yeah, I'd have come round. Is Graham in? No, he's dead.
No, he's dead. We murdered him.
Oh, you got Sky?
But I see you've got a satellite dish. That's why he's dead.
Yeah, come and watch it. It's all right. It's quite good. We have to kill him, though.
Exactly. So I imagine, there's people that listen to this podcast who understand where we come from with this stuff. And there might be people who don't. I don't know. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But we vicariously enjoyed Sky TV and MTV and all the other things because, quite honestly, I had parents that point blank refused to pay for it, even though they could have afforded it. Affordability otherwise, it was never going to be on the radar. Crazy. Well, it's crazy, isn't it?
We couldn't afford it, so that was that.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Gary didn't have it either, did he? I don't think he...
No,
he didn't, no.
No. 9th of May... Ireland's Johnny Logan wins the 1987 Eurovision Song Contest with Hold Me Now.
Yeah. Can you hum it? Can
you
remember it? Right. There's an interesting thing because that led me down a garden path. And the garden path was, there's actually a full list of UK entries. Don't click on that link, by the way. I think you just have. Don't click on that link.
Haven't.
We'll post it in the show notes. A full list of all the UK entries for the Eurovision over the years. All of them, they're on there. One of the great things about Wikipedia, as much as it might not be accurate, is that people do populate things like all of the entries of certain countries over a certain period of time for the Eurovision. What that led me to was, can you identify the Eurovision song from the Eurovision Pong? So... I'm going to give you a list of Eurovision song entries. You've got to tell me if you think they're real or they are, Euro trash. So,
okay. So these could be from any country, could they? Or are they all
These are
UK?
all basically UK. As long as you've not looked at the list, these are UK.
I haven't looked at the list. I haven't looked at anything, no.
We're just going to go for, because, if it was Euro without sounding crass, they'd have to be multilingual, and these aren't. So let's just go for basic
right,
UK.
Go for them. Yeah, okay.
So are they, Euro hit or Euro shit? You decide. So the first track out of our listening is Lippy Lappy Loo.
I'm going to say Euro hit.
Nope, that's a Euro shit.
I thought it was too stupid. It had to be true.
We're off to a bad start. Okay, the next one is Why Do I Always Get It Wrong?
Euro hit.
That is a Euro hit from the 1989 group Live Report. Boom, Banga Bang.
Oh, that's Euro hit.
That is. That's Lulu, 1969.
Yeah, I recognise that one.
Wanga Langa Dingle.
Euro shit.
Yes, that's not real. Okay, My Love Is Heart Shaped.
Oh, Euro shit.
That's actually My Heart Is Love Shaped. Sorry, but that's true, and that's from Love Pulse. Okay, Knock Knock, Who's There?
Euro shit.
That's real. That's
Oh,
from
God.
Mary Hopkin in 1970.
These are dreadful titles.
Touch My Fire.
That's got to be Euro shit.
That's real. That's
Oh.
Javine in 2005. Ring-a-ding Girl.
Euro hit.
That is from Ronnie Carroll in 1962. Floppy Flap Flap.
Euro shit.
Yes, that is. And Diggy Loo, Diggy La.
Euro hit.
That's a fake.
Oh.
That's Euro shit. I made that up. Although I have to say there was one called Diggy Loo, Diggy Lay, which could have thrown you
There
a
you
curve.
go. Yeah.
Thrown
There
you a
you
curve.
go.
Just shows you that the Eurovision is it's genuinely a really fascinating and interesting precursor to the politics of the world. Because if you look back at that list, there's a really interesting delineation. I know we'll post the Wikipedia link to all the UK hits of the Eurovision, but just look at the ones that were in the top 10 pre-1984, maybe 85. Yeah. Then look at, actually, I think it's 1990 almost. Then look at, because I think Katrina and the Waves won, I think, that year. Then look at how we have scored post-semi-Brexit. It's all kind of obvious where it's going. That nil point is the
yeah. Didn't we score nil point this year?
Yeah, we have scored nil point, I think, for the last few years, or at least nil point, or very early point, point,
point.
Oh, deux point.
We just don't have enough key changes, and we don't have enough maids of milking on stage.
No, what we need is we build you up. We build you up. We build you up in the pin-up club. They should just release that. I'm going to put a clip of the pin-up club right here.
Cheer you up, cheer you up, cheer you up in the pin-up club. Cheer you up, cheer you up, cheer you up in the pin-up club.
And then you'll know what I'm talking about. But just imagine that when they sing that song, they're all topless.
But it's sung by men.
Yes. Well, you.
Right,
No, it's not. It's not. You've ruined it. But no,
just for you. Bearded men, really hairy men.
Called Ben. Bearded men called Ben.
Absolutely. Imagine it's sang by centaurs.
Swinging around. Never mind.
So, clippity cloppeting. Right, 10th of May, on a more somber note, ITV airs Escape from Sobibor. A made-for-television film telling the story of the mass escape from the Sobibor, I don't know how to pronounce that, extermination camp during World War II, the most successful uprising by Jewish prisoners of German extermination camps.
Escape from Sobibor is a really great made-for-TV movie. I don't know if you remember it. Maybe you don't.
I don't remember it at all. No,
it's really good. It's Rutger Hauer and a really good cast in there. I think it's got what's that guy, Freebie and the Bean, in there?
James Caan,
Alan Arkin.
Alan Arkin.
There. It's a really good cast. It's a really good, well-produced TV movie, and I think it was one of the first, because all of the previous escape from type movies of this type had been escape from what's the one where they build the tunnel underneath the Nazi base and
Great Escape.
There've been Great Escape style stuff, and there's a kind of a joviality about the Great Escape. As much as it's really bleak and it's really horrific, and the stuff that they go through is horrible. The music, I think, is kind of it's like, hey.
Yeah.
This Escape from Sobibor there's really sombering moments about the whole idea of what they were going through. And I remember it really left an impression with me at the time, partly because there's that whole moment, because obviously not everyone escapes from Sobibor. The reality of this, like with all of these escapes, is that there's a significant proportion of people that don't make it through. But this is a really great TV production, and it's something that I think people should go back and watch again, because it's really, really good. It's really, really, really good. I mean, my intention is to go back and watch it again. I remember watching it at the time thinking, this is ace. So I'm going to do that.
I really don't remember any of it. I think it's probably not something I probably would have watched at the time. But yeah, I probably if I can find it, I might give it a view. If you say it's good, I will check it out. Okay. I imagine it's bleak.
It is very bleak. It's bleak but uplifting in the kind of way that these things are.
Kind of like Schindler's List style.
Yeah. Some of them escape, and it's told in that kind of Great Escape kind of way. But it's just, I'm going to have to watch it again. I remember it really left a real deep impression on me at the time, and I remember thinking that this was one of the best sort of World War II / extermination camp type films of that kind I've ever seen at the time. And I hadn't seen a lot of them, and it escaped that kind of heraldry, but it still held that kind of positivity about the fact that some of them escaped, and it was the way they did it, all the wrappings of an escape plan. You really get involved in it.
It's the strength of the human character and stuff.
Yes.
About that.
Definitely worth doing.
So that's Escape from Sobibor. That's it. That really is it for TV. There was not much on. So let's move on into film. Even films, there's not much this month. Anyway,
Not really.
let's see what we've got. We've only got 3 films, but on the 1st of May, you could have gone to see Jumping Jack Flash.
Ah, that's the, what's the name, isn't it? The
Whoopi Goldberg.
Whoopi Goldberg movie.
It's her first... It's not her first film. She played Celie in Colour Purple.
Yes.
So that was her first big role. But this was her first,
Breakout.
let's say, breakout starring lead role.
Is this what led to Ghost, or did this the one lead
Yes.
to Sister Act?
Well, I was just looking at it because I thought this was... I wasn't sure, so I just had a quick look. Jumping Jack Flash is the first. It's a first big breakout movie. It comes basically, just after the Colour Purple, so it's obviously 87, 86,
Yeah.
87. Ghost is 1990, 89, 90, and then Sister Act is 92.
Okay, so it's definitely Ghost then.
Yeah. So this leads to Ghost, and there's not much in between those films, sort of thing. But this was quite a performance. She's very, isn't in your face. Is Whoopi Goldberg being Whoopi Goldberg, basically, for what we sort of was expecting. And so this was, I imagine, I'm not going to, I don't know, but I can't think of many films that weren't blaxploitation films that had a black female actress as the lead.
No,
around
many.
this time. So I think this is maybe important in those respects. I'm not researched enough into it to say anything further than that, but I don't really remember many others that weren't those kind of period pieces like Colour Purple or things like that. But this was, I suppose you had, I don't want to say it's a female version of Beverly Hills Cop, but it's in that vein of a sort of wisecracking kind of. It's one of those kind of films.
It's good,
and it is. Yeah, it is a good film. So I think I've not watched it in a while, but I do remember it being quite a fun film and sort of high concept of what it is.
Yeah, it's where Whoopi Goldberg caught my attention, and then obviously she was in the movie Ghost and a few others that came up. For me, she was Guinan in Star Trek.
I knew you were going to go there.
Well, but that's where that's where the mainstay of her performances are for me. And let's not forget that she's in also the Star Trek movie with Kirk and Picard.
Yes.
So she's in that in quite an important pivotal role. And also she features in some of the most significant Borg episodes as well. So her character Guinan may not be... It's kind of a sort of side character almost, really, but she plays a very important role in the Star Trek universe, and she got that on the back of, I think, some of the variety of performance. It doesn't link necessarily to the character in Sister Act to Jumping Jack Flash, but I remember her more for Guinan than I do for Jumping Jack Flash, I have to say. A great actress all the same, and Sister Act, of course, well... she's great in that, and that's a great film. Both Sister Act and Sister Act 2, she's great in both of those, so fair play to her.
Yeah, decent stuff. So you could have gone and seen that. You wouldn't have had anything to go see for another couple of weeks, and then you went to see something very different. On the 15th of May, we had a House 2, The Second Story.
Yeah.
You a House fan?
I have some memories of the first House movie, but I don't remember much about any of the sequels of the House movie. So the House 2, The Second Story, is a bit of a miss for me. I don't quite know what it's about or anything.
Yeah, they're a sequel of returning value. So the first House is quite interesting, and it's one of the early ones where a guy buys a house and it's haunted and weird things happen. And doesn't he end up, if I remember rightly, going through a door and ending up in Vietnam at one point?
Yeah, something
all kinds
like
of strange
that,
stuff.
I think.
And there's the sort of monster, is it the mother-in-law or the mother or something, is kind of wandering around chasing him?
Something
big,
like that, yeah.
Big female sort of monster type thing. House 2 is, I think, I seem to remember it being more of the same, but I don't remember it being
More
as
comedy
good.
as I remember it.
Yeah, I think so, yes. It's the same house, a new owner gets involved. It didn't star William Katz, who was in the first one. It had Eric Gross. You'd recognise him if you saw him. It also had Royal Dano in it as Gramps.
Okay.
Just in case you wanted to know. Bill Maher, you recognise him. John Ratzenberger's in it. He was in the first one as well. Yeah, Cliff from Cheers.
Yeah.
So that's House 2. It's not as good as the first one, which was probably always going to be the case, wasn't it? Let's face it. And then again, you had another couple of weeks off until you could go see Michael Caine in The Whistleblower. Do you remember anything about The Whistleblower?
That's a surprisingly good impression, actually, then. No, I have absolutely no recollection of The Whistleblower at all.
It's in that period of Caine's career where he just does these kind of British spy thrillers. So this one, just read off IMDb. A war veteran tries to investigate the murder of his son, who was working as a Russian translator for the British intelligence service during the Cold War. He meets a web of deception and paranoia that seems to be impenetrable. So it's one of those. So think of Force, not quite as Force Protocol-y, but also there's that Hanover Street. Kane was doing a few of these around the time, and this is another one of those. It's not quite when he was doing the Harry, Ipcrest files and things like that early on in his career. But I just remember in the mid 80s, there was just a few of these that he did. And I can't remember. There was, Whistleblower, Force Protocol. There was another one as well, but Holcraft Covenant, I think. We mentioned that, I think, somewhere, didn't we? I think that's another one. So there's these kind of thrillery type stuff in the mid 80s. They're all right. They're perfectly serviceable British films, but you're not going to go to the cinema to see them. Not at our age. It's not. It's not like we're going to be going, oh, Graham, the new Michael Caine film's out. No, so we've got to go see it.
That's never going to happen. This is the by the way, the same guy that has directed the infamous Pride and Prejudice with Colin Firth. So
Simon Langton.
Yeah, that's the guy. But that particular production, the BBC production of Pride and Prejudice, is the one that with Colin Firth going, oh, really? Boobies, really? Boobies. And
it's the one that got a lot of frothing, didn't it? Should we say? That
is the collective noun for the side effect of what happens when
of Colin Firth coming out the water. There was much frothing in the UK when that happened.
When several Colin Firth fans get together, they call it a frothing of fans.
They'll put that screen on, sort of thing, and you can if you listen carefully, you can actually hear it.
Well, that's really grim. But yeah, he did that. It's kind of put me off it now. He did that. He was involved.
Well, it was that scene in Pride and Prejudice is well known as a hot scene, should we say, for women. So
I don't get the attraction for Colin Firth.
Do you know?
No, I don't get it. I watched him in all of the movies that he's been in, whether it's Pride and Prejudice or whether the more modern ones, where he's been in what do you call it? In Kingsman. And what's that one that is in, what's her name's baby? What's her name?
Oh, you remember Bridget Jones?
Bridget Jones. When he's in Bridget Jones and everything else.
Yeah, but he's not supposed to be sexy in Bridget Jones. That's the whole point.
I know that, but I just... No, but he is kind of meant to be, but not meant to be. That's the whole British kind of sexy thing, isn't it? That's the angle.
Did you not like him in his section in Love Actually?
I like him in The Kingsman. I think in that church fight scene in The Kingsman, I think he's genuinely brilliant. But that is an amazing sequence, all said and done.
Are we talking about whether we just like him as an actor or whether we find him hot?
I think. Well, I'm just saying. I think he's good looking. He's hot. I'm sorry, but he is. Sorry.
I'm glad to see you've come round on it. Yeah, he's a fine-looking chap.
He is. He's lovely. But you know what? In Pride and Prejudice, no, he's lovely in that. I don't know what it is about him. What is it about him? He's kind of...
He's mesmerising you.
He is. I'm looking at it right now on in the Set Movie Database, and I've changed my mind about him in the last 3 seconds. He's got... I'm turning him off right now. He's a devil.
You can never turn Colin Firth off.
I'm going to call him Colin Froth from now on, because that's
Colin Frothing,
because that's what happened. But I'm just going to take a minute now to change my pants. Excuse me a moment.
Yeah, well, that's it, really, isn't it? We've got.
That's it.
That was your TV and film. Indeed, short but frothy. I think is
that's
the
his Tinder profile.
From that. That's Gary's.
That is Gary's. That's Gary's MO and his Tinder.
Short, frothy, and angry. You can have two, but never all three. It's like the triangle of quality. Anyway, poor Gary. He's a good friend of the podcast.
He is a friend of the podcast massively.
Indeed. On that note, so there was Network 7, Johnny Logan, and escaping from Johnny Logan didn't escape from Sobibor.
A weak selection of crap.
Yeah, and not weak crap, just a small selection of decent stuff. Jumping Jack Flash, House 2, and The Whistleblower were your films. There you go. That's your film and TV for May 87. We're going to take a break now. You can listen to something else. We will be back soon, where we will talk about the last lot of games from this issue, and then we're off. So see you in a bit.
The novel Escape from the Commodore 64 by David Hearn is out now. Crash landing on a green planet full of vector graphics, can Sarah find a way to escape for real? Or is she stranded on a planet full of sun, sea, and chippy tea forever? Imagine finding yourself in a cinematic karate game, having to rescue a princess, or remain stuck under the run-stop key forever. What about finding yourself on a space freighter full of robots? Could you clear the decks? If you were transported back to a Wild West town, having to round up outlaws, could you survive until sunset? What if you were a wizard with a cat who must colour worlds? Could you beat the game, or would a virtual guitar solo announce your demise? Sarah might just be another visitor, but she doesn't want to stay a while, never mind forever. Available from Amazon and all good online retailers, discover if there's a way out in Escape from the Commodore 64. Visit davidhearnwriter.com to find out more.
Are you keeping up with the Commodore? Yes, the Commodore is keeping up with you.
Okay, we hope you liked what you just heard, and we hope you like what's coming up, because we've got more games. We've got 6, I think, coming up for our back end of this month, and let's get through them and let's get into them. So, Graham, tell us all about Pod.
POD pod, the proof of destruction pod. Pod. No pretentious story, no planets to be saved, no nothing, no nonsense, no whatever. This is a game which is strictly about blowing shit up, and it is. Those are the promises of the pod instructions. So this is from Mr. Sean Southern, essentially, with some kind of Mr. Chip software. Don't know quite what that is. It's Sean Southern anyway. There's a nice intro screen for this. So
It's what he does. It's what he does the Kickstart and stuff under, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's Sean Southern, released through Mastertronic. This is a 25-level survival shoot 'em up, essentially, where each level that you play is more difficult than the last, and they all promised. These are the instructions. Again, I'm going by the instructions a lot in this episode. They promise to be, quote-unquote, balanced for playability. So the game itself is a colour cyclotronic game on a grid with aliens flying at you that you must shoot. They are on a grid, which when damaged means you can't go over those parts of the grid. That's quite a nice touch. So it's a bit like playing the game on a waffle, really. And if you break the corners of the waffle, you can't go over the corners of the waffle. Probably a poor description.
What?
Anyway, so the trouble is with this game is that you've got a cyclotronic colour scheme in the background and a grid on top of that, and then players and centipede tap logic on top of that. So the enemies sort of scroll down and shoot at you. You shoot at them with your bullets. The bullets are nearly impossible to see on this game because of the colour strobing and the colour cyclotronic effect and the raster bar inducing headache things in the background. But the idea of it is kind of a centipede tap logic, I think. Certain levels are anyway, or at least the enemies come from the top down and you shoot from the bottom up. And if you miss them, you can blow up the grid that they're on, and that can render parts of the grid untraversable for you. And then it's a bit like Centipede. So I think Centipede does that. If you miss and shoot them, sometimes it can grow a thing, and the Centipede sort of spawns from that point, from the left and the right. I think so. So it's essentially Centipede logic on a raster colour. Problem is here. We've just seen a game like this, haven't we? We just played a game like this with Void Runner. This was Void Runner, and I think Void Runner did it slightly better. So this is a budget game, at least at $1.99. It got 84% in Zap, and there are things to like about it. So the pace is fast, the game is fast, everything works quite quickly. You're straight into it. And the one thing I'll say about a Sean Southern game is that it's programmed from the bottom down, top up. It's slick. So it all works really well. So there's no bugs, no flashing sprites, there's nothing that doesn't work. It all works in the way it should. My main issue with this was that upon playing it, as much as I enjoyed playing it and it was a good shoot 'em up, it felt like Void Runner. And the main problem was that I couldn't quite distinguish the bullets from the background from the enemy bullets that were firing at me. And that meant the game was impinged in terms of my enjoyability. And that felt for me like a bit of an issue, because even at $1.99 and even with only 25 levels and even with that nice simple, this isn't a game about this is a game about surviving that. I like that about it. I like those things. I like the presentation. The graphics are good. The playability is good. It moves fast. It's not as psychotropic as a Jeff Minter game, that's for sure. And there's really good things to like about this, but this is side by side Sean Southern's version of a Jeff Minter game. There's no doubt about that. And I wonder sometimes if this isn't a bit of a slap in the face. I don't know. But for me, as a player, this is a more playable version of a game that I'm going to get eye strain from, but I'm still going to get eye strain from it, even at $1.99. This is Pod versus Void Runner. I don't know. It's eye strain and a headache for me. I'm just reaching for the headache pills because these games are nauseatingly colourful, and I love that idea that there's all these amazing colour bar and colour effects with the C65. Don't get me wrong. There's a space and a time for that, but I don't know. Am I playing this game or am I being injected with some kind of information through colour schemes? I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same. If you had any retinas left after Minter's Void Runner, then Sean Southern is here to finish off the job of destroying them completely. Just, this is another single screen shooter, but it's on a grid and is reminiscent of Centipede once again. However, the difference is that when shooting enemies, they destroy the part of the grid they are on. So instead of creating a block that can be destroyed, so this makes them move through the grid in different ways. Same logic as Centipede, just a different way of presenting it. So and this also impedes your progress around the grid, and where you can shoot them until the grid heals itself after a few seconds, leads you to get stuck in places and die quickly. It's fast, it's frenetic, and the background effects make it incredibly hard to deal with the bullets and enemies that fly around the grid at quite the pace. And that's both positive and negative, really, isn't it? It's just that thing, isn't it? It is what it is, and there's no apology for this. This and Void Runner sit in this space where it's just going to be like, we're just going to assault your eyes. And it's going to be fast and smooth. And like you said, I think Southern and Sean Southern and Jeff Minter's games are always technically very smooth, very cohesive. There's no bugs. They work. They're fast. They're responsive. But they're both gone for this kind of style in quick succession. I don't know, either what the deal was here. It might have been that they talked to each other and said, "Let's see who can make the best version of Centipede." Who knows? Coders might have known each other and just said, "Let's do a version." Who knows? I thought this is quite a good arcade blast for £2. I mean, for £2, it's like Void Runner. You're going to enjoy your time with this, but kiss your eyes goodbye if you play it for more than a few minutes.
Absolutely,
because you get to the third or fourth level, and it's just you think it's bad on the first level, and you start getting to the third or fourth, it's like where
your eyes are broken after that.
Yeah, they're fried. It really is. This is another 2001 going through the infinite, whatever it is.
Yeah,
you just
you're seeing colours. The infinite,
yeah, you're seeing colours, and you'll see them for some time. Afterwards, but if you like that, if your eyes are not elderly and broken like ours, then you may get you may be able to get power more into this. But it is just wear sunglasses. Maybe I should play this with sunglasses. Maybe we should have a section games with sunglasses. Maybe that would enhance our enjoyment.
It might help. It might help.
It very well might do. But Pod Proof of Destruction. It's a simple game. It's a simple single screen blaster that looks like
and after you've watched that stroboscopic effect for 2 hours, you'll be simple. You'll be simplified. You'll be like,
you'll be looking for gibbons.
You'll be full on gibbons. And if you don't know what that means, I'm going to put a sound effect right now, which is a full gibbons here. So you've been gibbons.
It will be. There you go. Good Lord. Poor old gibbons. That's Pod. Gibbons! Where the hell are you? There it is, the Gibbons. He's with us in spirit alone. That's it, that's Pod. Let's move on quickly. Let's un-Gibbons ourselves and move on into our next one. So from the highs of Pod, we have an arcade conversion. So what was arcade inspired, we now have a direct arcade conversion. And what we have here is Elevator Action. So £9. Is this Electric Dreams who did this? I didn't note it down.
I didn't note it down, but I didn't note it down. Probably.
I think it might have been, but I didn't. Anyway, it's another week and another, let's just lay it down, terrible arcade conversion.
Egg.
This one really, egg indeed. This really does have, there's no excuses for this being so terrible. None. We're not talking state-of-the-art 1985 Gauntlets, 1985 Nemesis. We're not talking these big modern arcades. This is a 1983 arcade game. 83. This is ridiculous. Why is a 1983 arcade game ported so badly? 1983. Just let that ruminate for a bit. 1983. Terrible. So what is Elevator Action before we get into stuff? There's a story of sorts, I guess. So you play Otto, and so the basis of this game is kind of like you start at the top of a 30-story building. In the arcade, you come in on a zip wire and you land on the top, and you have to work your way down going down elevators, going down escalators, and working your way to the bottom. As you work your way down, certain doors, you kind of see it side on, and each floor you go down has doors to the left and right of the central elevator. So some of those doors will flash. If they flash, you've got to go in them, because the whole point is that you've got to steal secret documents on your way down the building. They are hidden behind the flashing doors. Out of other doors will come enemy agents, and you have to shoot them. They will try and shoot you, and essentially you just got to survive all the way down to the bottom, collecting the secret documents. And if you get to the bottom, you're whisked away by a getaway car. That's it. I mean, this is simple. It's one-way scrolling. Well, it's two-way scrolling. It's up and down, but the arcade doesn't look anything amazing. This is, it's certainly nowhere near out of the capability of the Commodore 64. And we know it's not, because we've already reviewed a game that was really based on this, and it did it with much better and was, without too much issue. That was Mission Elevator, which was a really good game and a good version of this arcade game. So there's no reason why this game is this bad. You'll never get to the bottom, though, because the problem with it is manifold. The visuals are ugly. I mean, really ugly. They look crap. They're just dreadful sprites, dreadful scrolling. They're glitchy, they're horrible, they're buggy. The sound is annoying, and the gameplay's full of bugs, and that you'll fall through floors, you'll get whisked off the top of the elevator, stuff will happen, bullets will disappear, bullets will go through people. Awful, twitchy controls. It's really hard to enter a doorway. You're just supposed to push up when you're in front of it, but yeah, good luck with that, because you've got to be pixel perfect. It's just crap. You can't get into anything. Bullet stop. It's just rubbish. There's no excuse for any of this, really. We're 4 years on. This game is 4 years old. This machine is more than capable of doing a good version of this pretty decent arcade game, and they've just ruined it. It's terrible. It's not a brilliant arcade game. It's not. But it is remembered fondly by quite a lot of people. A lot of people do like this, me included. And this is an affront. This is, breakthrough bad. This is jailbreak bad. Got 29%. I'd have given it lower. I think it's almost so broken as to be unplayable in parts. So I hated this. I thought this was terrible. Terrible version. And one that completely bypassed me at the time. So I'm affronted that I've had to play it now. Did you enjoy your time with the elevator action at all?
No. To echo everything you've said, really, this was based on an arcade. Really?
Yeah.
I understand that there was an arcade involved.
Just to say, sorry, it was Quicksilver who made this, not Electric Dream.
No, that's fair. This is an appalling conversion, and it lacked all of the fun of the arcade. Big, blocky, horrible intro graphics, really dull Dave Whittaker music, buggy, nasty, horrible block sprites, tiny sprites, doesn't quite work, don't look right, doesn't play well. This felt like someone had seen the arcade and then made this from the memory of it.
Yeah.
And so it had horrible graphics, really bad sound, terrible game, and just no. And at full price, get
Yeah.
The worrying thing here is that, like you accurately have pointed out, this is way late. So late. This isn't elevator action. This is like elevator action, after...
Actionless.
Actionless set amount of time. Elevator action, ? Really should have been there. I don't know.
Yeah, this should have been called Stanner Stairlift.
Yeah, it's supported by...
the quality.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Schindler's Lifts. Because there is a company called Schindler that makes lifts.
There is, yes, there is indeed. But... like I said, we already had this with Mission Elevator, which is
we did.
really good.
And it was
smooth,
better.
Well
Way
made.
better. Yeah.
Way better.
Just crap. At $8.95, you can take that price and you can stick it up your Shaolin's Road.
You can stick it up your elevator shaft.
Yeah, stick it up your shaft, yeah. Up your shaft. 29%. Massively up your shaft. Get lost. Goodbye. So long. Ta-ta. Goodbye.
Yeah, let's move on, because I'm sure we've got something good coming up.
Yay.
I'm sure we have.
Yay.
Let's move on. Graham, Terminator.
Yes. Ba-bum, bum, ba-bum. Ba-bum, bum, ba-bum.
Yeah, if
only. Okay, this is created by Gavin Rayburn, musician Gavin Rayburn Gax, according to the information on the internet. This is Terminator. This is a $1.99 game. Just hold that thought. Hold it. Hold it in your mind. The Earth is under threat, according to Zapped, anyway. And I actually have a little bit of doubt after this, after some of the reviews in Zapped that have not been necessarily, especially in this issue of Zap have not been truly akin to, like with Shockway Rider, what the actual game was about. Anyway, so the Earth is under threat in this, and you are in a spaceship, and you've got to blow stuff up in a kind of... There's actually sort of sections to this kind of game. It's a side-scrolling shoot-up, essentially, in a Uridium-ish vein. So you scroll left and right, the enemies attack you, and you have to sort of shoot them. So round one, you've got to kill the alien waves that fly at you. Now, when I say Uridium-like, it means you can reverse your spaceship's direction. It seems to take forever to do that. It's so slow. No, Uridium was quick. When you turn direction, boom, I'm to the left, boom, I'm at the right, boom, I'm at the left. This one, it's like, I'm going to go to the...
It's the 3-point turn.
It's like,
It's the 3-point turn of Uridium.
Beep, 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 beep. This spaceship
is reversing.
beep, beep, beep. And it's like, okay, I'm going to go back, and then I'm going to reverse and woo, beep, beep. So if you imagine that kind of logic on a game that's a shoot 'em up, essentially side-scrolling. So you got to kill the alien waves in round one, and once you do that, you get to the next stage where you got to blow up the planet core. So you shoot at the planet and it blows up.
There.
You won't, because this game is bugged and it won't get that far. And then after that, apparently, you've got to then go to the next stage where you do a third thing. Now, I say third thing because you're not going to get past the first thing. There's bugs in this game, and it doesn't quite let you escape out of this sort of world of shooting stuff. I managed to get past the first stage of shooting the aliens out of the sky. Now, let me tell you, considering you blow up just by almost turning around.
By blinking.
Because I started the game, I blew up instantly because enemies attacked me from the left-hand side. I was in the middle of the screen, and I hadn't moved in time. So, okay, lesson learned, game. I'll move. So I moved out the way of those initial ones. Boom, dead instantly because I hit a tree. Boom, dead because it's just you're going to die a lot in this game because of stupid stuff. So if you don't blow up in succession and you manage to make it through that initial wave, and there's wave after wave of aliens, ships that's just going to do that. The idea of this game is that you can get through, blow the planet up, and then there's, I think, 17 randomly planets to blow up.
One more than Uridium.
Yeah, and then you blow up the 17th planet, and I don't know what happens. Maybe dogs and cats living together, harmonious instrumentation. A lute can play with a who knows what really happens at the 17th level of achieving that. This is a blocky, badly drawn variant of Uridium. Well, the Uridium sprite is the main sprite, essentially. The rest of the sprites are kind of badly drawn variants of I'm not sure what. The background's kind of a side-scrolling, jungle-y vibe, the one I was on. But in reality, even if it changed and varied massively, it wouldn't alter the gameplay. You can't move quick enough to not die, which is a real killer in this game. Literally a killer. So you were going to die a lot because you choke. I want to go to the left.
Beep.
Dead.
Beep.
Beep, beep, beep. This spaceship is... Oh, So you can't help but die in this game. There's nothing you can't do in this game apart from die. And you'll do that a lot. And you've got lives. It's kind of an arcade heritage type game. Just a side-scrolling piece of crap. It's nonsense. It's rubbish. It's terrible. Please tell me you didn't like it, because I thought this was awful.
Of course not.
But just 1 second. Beep, 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 beep. I'm just reversing my spaceship. Beep. What do you think?
Netto Uridium. That's what I called it.
That's such a good description. It's unbelievable.
It's like lower than Aldi, lower than Lidl, to the Netto Uridium. It's Heron Farm Food Uridium.
That's a 7p loaf of bread Uridium.
Absolutely. There is nice presentation to this at the start, but it can't hide this utter abomination of a shooter. It's so slow, and why have a landscape? The enemy logic is awful. The game is terrible to play. It's so slow, and the shooting is crap. Why do you whiz on at the start really fast, but then can only ever attain about a quarter of that speed? What's going on there? It's like you've been flung on by an elastic band, and then you've run out of inertia. What's the point of any of this? It may be £2, and once again you have a quarter of Uridium, but that's not good. It's no good at all. same guy made the Equalizer.
Oh, God.
And he also, why can't he come up with the original name? He goes on to make games called Poltergeist, The Enforcer, and Gothic, none of which, by the looks of them, have anything to do with anything. Why is he ripping off names and nothing to do with what you've made? It's awful. What's he doing?
You're asking why? You know why.
Well, I do. It's recognisable properties, sort of thing, but it's just really strange. What does this have to do with Terminator? I mean, oh, God.
Muscular
this was awful.
Bodybuilders from the future.
The one thing, the one thing a shoot-em-up has to have is fast, responsive controls.
Yes.
If you're hearing a van reverse when you want to turn round, then you have failed in the one thing that a game like this has to have.
Beep, beep, beep.
It's just awful. This is a terrible. We've played some crap Iridium style things like War. What was that? Even that Psychastria is better than this.
Yes. At least it turned in a relatively short space of time.
It did, yes. You didn't have to stick your hand out. Try not to hit the curb. Reverse back.
Ask
reverse
your mate
forward.
to guide you in.
Just awful. This was dreadful. Terminator, and it's a stupid name, and I don't like this. This is with this and the Equalizer. There's two people do 2 games in this month, and he's one of them, and they're both. Well, at least Equalizer was an okay version of Wonder Boy. This is a dreadful version of Iridium. Netto Iridium, as I said.
Yes.
Oh, it's made me angry.
Right. Go and work that anger off.
I will do, because let's move on to our next one.
Beep, beep, beep.
Oh, dear. Yes, move on. Move along slowly, reversing slowly. Right, what's up next? Okay, so it's a full price game, and this is The Growing Pains of Adrian Mole, a series of books that plagued my bloody youth. Especially certain things. Where's your ruler? So this is the adaptation of The Secret Diary of Adrian Mole. The adaptation of The Secret Diary of Adrian Mole was actually reviewed in issue 8 of Zap. We never looked at it because it was in the White Wizard section. So it was in the adventure section.
That,
we may do. We won't, but we may do. So I wish they'd done the same with this, really, because I'm going to be honest here. There's no game here. There's no game. This is an adaptation of the book, but there's no game. I imagine that Portal is probably money. If you don't want to read a book, just read a book. So there's every now and again you get an odd choice. So you just 3 options now and again. Like what I played it for a bit, and I just saw that this is the logic. You get a lot of text with some imagery at the top. So it's looks like an adventure game, except it's not an adventure game. This is like a really early Twine game, because you'll get 3 options and you just have to pick one. It's like, oh, so and so are getting married. How do you feel about that? Terrible. It's all right. Oh, I'll go get a present now. Pick one. It makes no difference to what comes next. You just get a bit of a telling off, and then you get a score, which seems arbitrarily just a percentage out of something. I presume it's out of 100, obviously, but I don't know what it's actually varied on. So that's it. The Adrian Mole series of books, but because obviously they were a bit of a phenomenon in the early 80s. They were really very popular for various reasons, mostly because they were funny, they were well observed stories of a fictional teenager growing up in Leicester, I think, and then all that entailed. They were unusual. They were unlike anything else you'd kind of read before. So they were kind of breaking the barriers and stuff, and they felt modern, and they felt relevant, and they felt of the time, and they were very popular, and everyone read them, and then they got turned into a TV show with Judy Walters and people like that, and then they got made into these game. I hate to, I'm not down on things that are not games. That's not my bag sort of thing. But this is not a game. There's nothing to play here. This is, in itself is pretty well written, but you'd expect that with the source material. But I don't know why you'd play this. Just rather read the book. I read the book back then. I can get no further enjoyment out of this because there's nothing here to enjoy. I don't see the point to it. If you are interested enough to play this, just read the bloody book rather than go through 4 painfully slow sections of non-gameplay, because it's not even an adventure. There's no way to die. You don't fail. You just get a higher or lower percentage score. I don't know. People, maybe let some people to read the source material, maybe, but this is £10. The book was probably about £2 back then. What? Just why? I don't get it. I don't understand this release. I do. It's marketing on the Adrian Mole name, and it was a big deal back then, so I get it. But I don't get it because there's nothing here. It's not been made into a game. It's not been made into an adventure. It's just It just seems and I don't know why they reviewed it really and gave it 52%. I suppose it's all right in that respect because it's like the book, but did you get anything from this beyond, what did you think? Because I'm at a loss with this.
I never got into the whole Sue Townsend book deal with this, and I generally avoided all things Adrian Mole. For me, this is a dull, admittedly humorous-ish trip into the world of an angsty teen, which is somebody I neither cared about or wanted to relate to or had an interest in at all, neither then or now. The idea of turning the book into something of a series of descriptive scenes with multiple choices and some token blocky images didn't really do it for me, strangely enough. I did try to get into it, but the notion of going through a year and a half of a series of humorous teen anecdotes actually filled me with dread and an overwhelming sense of gloom.
And I couldn't see it catching on.
I don't see it having any interest for non-fans of Adrian Mole, which I am a non-fan, nor would you want to repeatedly play through it. The idea that it plays through different scenarios and crises and things and the way it works, and maybe there's an interesting thing for the people that like the book, maybe, is as a token side thing for the book. If you've got the book and you want to play this, and it speaks to an interesting thing about having media in multiple formats, which later down the line we take for granted. We have podcasts about the thing, and we have TV shows about the main show and sub shows. This speaks a little bit to that kind of mentality, and that's interesting in of itself. Not because of the game's any good, because it's literally boring crap, but because it represents something that is an extension of brand, and that's quite an interesting thing in terms of marketing for those people doing an MBA who listen to this podcast, if there's anybody who happens to be doing that. If you're not, it probably doesn't hold much interest for you. So I tried to play through this as both an interested party in the world of Adrian Mole, which I couldn't get into, and a non-interested party of Adrian Mole, which I couldn't get into. So I didn't find a way in. It's not for me. The way it plays out, the way you work the game is fine, from that kind of interesting point of view. But it is very much about 1 to 3 choices, and that's really it. That's all there is to it. So you choose your choices, and like you say, you get that weird arbitrary percentage score. Your decision has made you 33% less effective in this game. It's like, get lost, you boring piece of crap. What you are is 100% less effective in my I'm going to play another game right now list. So, I don't know. It's an adventure game wrapped in different trousers, isn't it, really? One for the fans, I think. One for the fans of Adrian Mole, maybe. Because I think if you're a fan, I don't know if you were a fan of Adrian Mole.
You'd have to be a big fan. I liked the books. I read them back then and enjoyed them for what they were.
Well, I didn't, because I knew a lot of teenagers at the time, you included. I knew what crusty sheet was going on. I didn't need a reminder of the crises around that. That was an awful thing anyway.
So barely a game. It's barely a game, that is.
It wasn't a game, was it really? It's a text
no, not really.
clicking options. Yeah,
Rubbish. Let's move on. So up next. So Graham, we have another budget title. Loads of budget titles. Tell us all about the joys of LazerWheel.
LazerWheel, LazerWheel. This feels like you could join the wheel of lasers and fire the wheel of lasers. Laser wheel, laser.
It's a wheel with lasers.
Laser wheel. This is a Sean Southern coded game.
It is another one.
Yeah,
2 in a section.
And there's a story to this. So some aliens have decided to invade the 8 sectors of the hyperspace causeway. I like to think of that as the hyperspace bypass, which is a little bit borrowed from our friends at Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
It is, yeah.
Totally. So you pilot a spacecraft, which in this game is the center of the world, and you have to destroy the aliens and their bombs over various levels. Now, the game here is viewed from a top-down view, so your spaceship is in the middle, and the sectors are shown on the screen, and the enemies kind of rotate around you. Now, this is quite a clever game in the way it works, in the way that it functions, but that is also its its biggest downfall as well. So if you imagine your spaceship is in the center and essentially you use your joysticks to rotate left and right, and you shoot at objects that rotate on the circumference of the circle that you're in. And if you shoot them and you miss, then you get this kind of block that exists for a short space of time. And if you shoot that block, it bounces your bullets back and blows you up. Then you lose a life. And these things rotate around and you've got to shoot them. And if you shoot some of them, they split into two and they go round the outside of the circumference pretty nippily. This feels like there's a game which is based around a similar concept on iOS, which is about atoms. And I can't remember the name of the game for the life of me right now. But essentially, you are in the center of this world and you shoot your bullets at different atomic objects and they split into their varying atomic objects. So you shoot something iron, it splits into its component parts. I'm not describing it very well, but the principle of the game is the same. So on this game, if you imagine that you are a spaceship type thing in the center of a circle and you're shooting at objects that rotate around the circumference of said circle, and some of the objects you shoot will disappear because you shoot them in one go. Other times you might miss and you'll get an object that will appear arbitrarily and bounce bullets back. Other times you might shoot and they'll split into two and they'll whiz around the circle faster than you might think. So the idea of the game is to make the objects that appear around you disappear. You will shoot them essentially, so you've got to blow them up, right? And as it gets more complicated, more objects appear, and this is all color based as well. So they start off with one color, you shoot them. Now, if I'm sounding more complicated than it needs to be, I think because for a $2.99 game and a LazerWheel, this game is a complicated array of options. It's done simply. So once you start the game and you kind of get the gist of it, shoot the blocks essentially and shoot them repeatedly until they disappear. Don't shoot an empty space because you'll get a grey block and that will bounce your bullets back and it'll blow up. Once you get around that kind of logic and you're rotating around and you're shooting it, fine. But the problem is that's all this game is. It's that. And the main issue is this is a slickly programmed, well thought out, well constructed, and well animated game. The way the game plays in front of you is really, really nice. So it feels slick. The animations are fast. Everything runs as it should. Everything works. This is a Sean Southern game. Sean Southern doesn't do crappy games. So, not wholly. So, everything that should be in there works really nice. As things appear and disappear, you go through the sectors of the game. There's an entire display around the area you're in. And the whole game feels like a really nice arcade. The problem is that arcades actually have a little bit more complexity than this. This feels like it's a really weird thing to describe. This feels like an arcade game that has not enough arcadeism about it. So it feels like a bonus level. It feels like a bit like a level between two game levels that should have happened. It doesn't feel like this game has enough legs around it to support it as a full game. So it feels like it's almost like you've played another game and you got to this level and this is a bonus level and you're doing it and you get past this and then you go back to the main game. This doesn't feel like a main game. And I don't think it is. I think this is a little bit that Sean Southern figured out. And graphically and programming wise and all those amazing things, it really works well. And it's slick. It really works out the shell. It works. The problem is it doesn't have enough coherency to be a whole game. It's just what it is. It's just rotating things around you that you shoot. And it doesn't feel like the payoff is enough to warrant this entire game. So it's a bonus level without its contingent non-bonus game parts. And for me, that's unfortunately what it feels like. It's $2.99, so I might give it a bit of leniency in the sense that it's a well-polished game at that price. But what else is there? What else are you doing? Where does it go? What is it? What's it leading to? After you've gone past the 17th rotating screen of stuff, are you not going to be bored by the 7th? I don't know. That's my problem with it. What about you?
Yes, you are. It's still a Sean Southern game, and I'm just going to put all the competent programming to one side because it is, he's a competent programmer who can do his stuff and it all runs smoothly and it's all great. That's fine. The problem is this is painfully dull, I thought. This reminded me from a standpoint view, but it's that bit from Empire where you were rotationally challenged to shoot stuff. So it's the bit in space. It's that. There you go. That's it. That's what this game is. Apart from there's blocks moving around the circumference and you shoot those blocks. And sometimes they change colour and split, and sometimes they don't, and yada yada. Because I found that the collision detection was a bit arbitrary sometimes and not very reliable. I'm sure I shot something. In fact, the grey block I just generated is inside the block I just shot. It's quite an interesting idea, I guess, but it just gets really dull really quickly. I thought the sound effects were pretty simple and annoying. The graphics, they're well animated, but there's not that much of them, really. I mean, there's your rotating ship, and I suppose the blocks going round are, rotationally nice. And I guess there's some clever coding here in that sort of respect, and it works well, but it's just not very enjoyable to play. Of the two Sean Southern games we've had in this section, I'd just go play Pod. Pod may be hard on the eyes, but it's infinitely more enjoyable and more fun than this. Which I just, it's really grey as well, this, isn't it? Yes. It's like the antithesis to Pod. It's like he made one game which was like all the colours, and he'd used all the colours, and the Commodore 64 that he was programming went, I have no colour left. All you can use are the greys.
You've got all the greys and that's it.
You've sucked all the colour out of me, Sean. I can give you all my grey.
Yes, he sucked all the colour out.
He did. So straight out the RS-232 port or whatever.
Ew, no.
And then we got left with LazerWheel. And LazerWheel sounds like a really exciting name for a game.
The wheel, dude. This LazerWheel.
Absolutely. It's the wheel. It's got lasers.
It's exactly. It's the sort of thing that Michael McIntyre will be making a killing out of it.
Yeah, but it's not. It's more like, absolutely. It could be a game show name, couldn't it? Something, but this is dull.
It's more like a broken wheel, like a.
You don't fire lasers either.
The spokes have kind of shattered. It's all. You
fire
wrong.
bullets.
No, you don't. Yeah.
So bullet wheel, and it's not on a wheel. It's just in a circle. Bullet circle.
The bullet circle sounds really boring, doesn't it?
Which is more accurate to this game.
Would you like to enjoy the bullet circle? The sphere of death sounds more intriguing than the bullet circle.
It does. But either way, this is dull. 31%, probably about right. I'd swear I'd put it.
No, less, yeah.
Yeah, all right. Let's move along to our last game of the episode.
Oh, thank God.
All right. So, Cholo. Cholo is our last game. I'm going to talk about this because Cholo, all right. So this is £15 on tape. Anyway, why is it £15? So let's cut to the chase at the very beginning, and then we'll get into it a bit. It's a plodding vector graphic 3D Paradroid ripoff, thematically, wrapped up in a novella and the interface from Tau Ceti, and not as good as anything I've mentioned. There you go. Because I did mention the plodding, right? I did mention that bit. Okay. I did wonder, just as an aside, why, considering the packaging and considering everything this is, why this wasn't released under the Rainbird label. Feels, rather than the Firebird, as the packaging and game seems to share a lot with Starglider and Tracker.
Sorry, you mean Rainboard?
Rainboard, yeah, Rainboard. Yeah, it seems to have that, but I wonder if it's because this was ported from the BBC and not the Amiga, so this was a comparable port. Whereas the I don't know if Tracker was on the Amiga. I don't know. Anyway, whatever. Something to do. Anyway, let's set the scene. So, okay, you get a 43-page novella. Did you read it, by the way?
Yes, I did. It's a good novella.
I did, and it's not.
It's good. It's good in comparison to the other Firebird / Rainbow novellas, of which there's been like 3.
So the world has been scorched by nuclear fire again, and the only humans left alive live deep in a bunker underground, guided and looked after by the omnipotent central computer. All is well. There is no crime, no marriage, and everyone drinks Choco to go to deep, dreamless sleep every
marriage? Night. That seems like a very strange thing to have.
There are some there's I think
no crime, no marriage.
the novella was written by the novella was clearly written by a man.
I'm just thinking, no crime, no marriage.
Some of the descriptions are.
It's almost the same as no woman, no crime. This is no woman, no crime. It's just
no marriage, no crime. So you play Jared, who is the hero or the main character of the novella. And he is someone who basically, his job in the novella is he fixes issues with the computer in these small sort of service ducts. And he feels he's the only person that feels that something is wrong with all this, because of course he does, blah, blah, blah. Jared is also the best player at the Rat game. It's kind of mentioned in there, which along with also, did you also notice as well in the novel that there was a game of throw the ball in the hole?
Yes.
Of course there was.
The token game, ball in hole game, yeah.
Ball in hole sci-fi game. So the rat game is the only entertainment available to people, and Jared is the best one at it. So he's framed for a crime that he doesn't commit.
18.
Yes, and is sent into exile. But that is just a ruse by the computer. It's all spoilers, by the way, so you can go read it if you want, but I don't care. So this is a ruse by the computer who, in Last Starfighter style, is using the rat game to see who is up to the task of navigating the deserted city of Cholo, which is the city above the bunker, under which the humans live, and allow them to return to the now safe surface by hacking all the armed robots which prowl its streets. Okay, so there's your premise. So essentially, the surface which they all think is irradiated, they're led to believe it's all irradiated and unsafe, has actually been safe for about 332 years. Oddly precise, but I suppose it's a computer, it tells him, or something like that. But the only problem is there are all these robots roaming around that you have to hack and get rid of and whatever. So that's the backstory, and that's provided in the 43-page novella that comes with the game. I didn't think it was particularly well written. There's spelling errors, there's punctuation errors, there's way too many commas, and there's some the dialogue is awful. I mean, awful. It's really clunky, some of that dialogue.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've studied writing, shall we say, and that's clunky dialogue.
Yes. Well, you're an
anywho,
expert, so we'll take what you say as the way it is.
Time has not been kind to us anyway. It's clunky. Anyway, that's the setup. That's the setup. There you go. So what's the game? So the game is... You start the game by controlling it from a first-person viewpoint, and I'll go into the technicalities of what it looks like in a little bit. So you control a small robot called Rizzo the Rat, and you've got to navigate the city and essentially hack, destroy the other robots, and you've got to find these various information packs that are dotted around within computers. They aid you in your quest. They give you passcodes that when you hack into a droid, you've got to put the password in. Now, the first thing you find is like a list of 10 possible passwords. Only one of them work on the thing. You've got to guess which one it is. So you have to kind of work this way when you ram into when you knock out the first droid and ram into it. As you take over robots, you can switch between them, and I think that's quite a nice touch. So essentially what you're doing is you're building up like a small army of robots which you can flip between, and the different robots have different abilities and different things. So that's quite good. That's not a bad idea. So it's kind of like Paradroid, but imagine if Paradroid was allowing you to have a multiple droids that you could flick to at any one moment throughout the ship. That's kind of the idea here, I think. What you see, though, on screen is the screen is split up into chunks, so kind of like what we saw in Tau Ceti. So the top left, except not solid visuals, this is 3D vectors. So in the top left is 3D vector graphics, view of the surrounding area. The top right is a really bitty map of the city. The bottom left shows you what RAM packs you have found, and the bottom right is the message center, where important info is presented, like crash when you hit something. So from this premise, you might think this all sounds quite interesting, but I mentioned the plodding, and the pop-up. Actually, I didn't mention the pop-up, did I? Because I was waiting to pop it up here. The game is slow. The vectors are really slow, and I mean really, really slow. And they pop up really badly. Walls and buildings appearing just a few feet from you at times. It's so plodding and vacant. It seems so empty because it's just white vectors on a black background. And half the time you can't see anything until you've moved towards something, and then suddenly it'll just pop up in front of you. And a building will just be there like, And it's just, that's the problem. The premise is quite good. I quite like the idea of building up this army of robots to take over through hacking them and shooting them and finding these clues dotted about this landscape, this city, and you don't know what's happened and you're trying to figure it out. That's all right. It's a nice sci-fi idea. The problem is it plays terribly because the presentation there are some nice presentational touches. Like I quite like the way the screen that you see through goes all like zeros and ones when you, and then the noise which is straight out of Paradroid when you do ram into an enemy droid and you try and hack it, and that's quite okay. But it's those boring visuals and it's so dull. The problem with this is it's another example of a game ported to the C64 that just doesn't work well. I posted a link, and I would recommend you do it. Sort of thing. I might post it somewhere on the Twitter, but go look at the BBC version because the BBC version is really pretty fast and it works all right, much better. It's way better. This is £15 for a slow, turgid trek through an interesting sci-fi idea. If you want a badly written, cliched sci-fi novella, I'm sure there are thousands out there that are not £15. Probably loads, but just no reason to play this game on this machine. I looked at the Amstrad, the Spectrum, and the BBC, they're all better and they all run faster. C64 is not built for vectors, and it shows here. So there's an idea here, and I like some of the trappings around it, but the inherent game itself just doesn't. It's just boring. It's just really dull. I'm guessing you may have felt the same.
I feel the way I feel about C64 vectors is the way Indiana Jones feels about snakes. So it's like vectors. Why did it have to be vectors?
That's just my pet vector, Reggie.
So this is another vector game from Firebird, another novella to read because they have to justify crap vector games with
15 quid.
With 20 to 80 page novellas. Another tragic waste of my time, story, and the coding ability from the people, and this is made by the same people that made the Rainbird game. So this is from the same people that made, Rainbird.
Starglider.
So Starglider, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is from the Starglider people. It shows as well. There's a nice intro screen, and that's where your enjoyment of this crappy piece of vector garbage is going to end. It gives way to a series of vector craft in a menu-like display. So on the top left, there's a micro version of the matrix on the top right. Did you see that? That green...
Yeah, that's what I said, that bitty image of a city, which is impossible to get any information from.
I just thought that was like a micro version of the Matrix. It was as comprehensible and as inevitable and...
ergo, it was impossible to read.
And concordantly, I could not avoid the Matrix-style thing.
And we felt that it was showing the anomaly of the decisions made by the developers in making this game.
It was the 7th version of that screen that I'd seen. Concordantly, ergo. Anyway, so I just ignored that. The slow vector, white on black vectors, lurched their way. Lurged is a new word I've invented. Lurged their way.
It fits.
It fits into the screen.
I was lurged at by vectors.
And they sort of, they slump their way around. I sort of, gloff my way around this. I'm just making it worse because I think it works. Around this sort of landscape-ish thing. I don't know what I was doing. I was just encountering vector objects in relative distance. So 1 second I'd be quite far away. Dig-dag-dog. Soon they'd be closer. Dig-dag-dog. It was just horrible, blocky, juddery vector. All the things I hate about games of this type. So never mind this eloquent, 80-page novella description. That does not set the scene for this drudgery that you are befouled. It doesn't. Now, there are games that come along later that, when I'm talking about things like Driller, where we know that there's limitations around the whole Driller filled vector thing and the speed of it and everything else, but they are at least exploratory things in a vector-filled world. And there's things to do, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but this isn't anything like that. This is just that horrible vector graphic nonsense. Why do they do this on the 64? I cannot get my head around it. We have seen so many of these games come and go. Every single one of these games has been utterly shit. Every single one. There hasn't been a decent, solely vector game on the C64 probably since Encounter, and I'm not even sure that's really what you'd class as a fully vector game.
That's not vector, that's filled in.
That's what I mean. So that's sprite, essentially sprite scaling maybe. But so this idea that you can have a C64 game that's a vector-based, mathematically concluded game. Even Mercenary struggles with this, and Mercenary at least has the story and the story arc and the wherewithal to make it about something else. And I was able to settle there. No, I was able to become what I needed to be in. I opened hotels. I became the mayor. We've talked about that on many an occasion.
We have.
Cholo, on the other hand, there's no space for a mayor there. There's no space for anybody. This is a nightmare world. Awful. This is just terrible. This is just a series of 3D interactions that throw themselves at you. This is the equivalent of walking down a corridor where people throw cubes and spheres at you just for random reasons and in actuality it's even slower than that. They'd have to throw you these things in slow motion. So it's just awful. I don't like it. I don't get it. I don't understand. I read the novel. I didn't like it. Everything about this is rubbish. The fact that this is 15 quid on tape is just an abomination beyond everything I can think of. That is a proper slap in the face. There's no reason for this to be anything other than $2.99 for me, maybe even $1.99. $14.95 on tape. You are genuinely opening up your arse cheeks for a severe pummeling, and you are going to be gaping like a fish out of water after that. No, you are going to be. You're a tuna fish out of water. You're a guppy. You're going to be a bottom-hold guppy, gaping and blinking and going, and that's what's going to happen.
Choled.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're cholold.
There's nothing about this, and I get it. I get the idea. I get the mathematical programmatic skills. I get it. I get why you'd want to try this thing. But if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm just going to say this to you once and for all. The Commodore C64 is a great machine. Beautiful graphic chip, amazing sound chip, but it has not got the graphic power for lots of pushed mathematics.
It's not got the processor.
No, it doesn't have the mathematic processor. Stick to Sprouts. It's got eight hardware
you just
sprites.
said Sprouts.
Stick to Sprouts.
Stick to Sprouts. It's better than this. Put them up your Cholo hole.
Yes. Stick to the hardware sprites. Just stick to what the strength of the machine. Sprites. This has a
broccoli,
peach,
cauliflower, all kinds of stuff.
The C64 has IRQ interrupts. It has scrolling registers. It has the ability to do these things in hardware. So stop trying to make it do mathematical complex calculations and make games out of it, because it is now at the point where you are shitting it in an egg cup and you've smoothed that shit to an egg shape, but I'm not going to crack it with a spoon. Not anymore. I'm done now. I'm done.
I'm done with cracking shit eggs.
With shitty egg cups, get lost.
Can't tell. Yeah, just because Easter's coming up, don't shit it in an egg cup and call it an Easter egg.
And no more Sprouts. 8 hardware Sprouts is enough for me. Get lost.
It's absolutely. Yeah. No software cauliflowers.
No software cauliflowers. No raster cucumber interrupts. No hardware Sprouts. None of your veg-based chicanery. Just stop doing vector stuff, because the Vic chip and the CPU cannot cope with it. Like I can't cope with it. And stop writing 80-page novellas to try and justify that bullshit. Stop it.
Especially
don't do that.
Not very good.
No, just no. And then the dark times came. Yeah, they did. They did.
Yeah.
They did indeed. No.
Every morning.
Stop farting in my face. Get lost.
Here we go. That's Cholo.
Choloff,
yeah. Chololol. We didn't like Cholo. So what have we looked at? So in this episode, what have we looked at? We looked at, because we've got some crapverts to come up. We've got a couple of crapverts. There's always a bonus. We looked at Shockway Rider, Cyber 1, Conquest. There was a lot of budget crap, wasn't there? Conquest, Sunstar, which is weird, Aliens, the Activision version of Aliens. We looked at films. We looked at Pod, Elevator Action, Terminator, The Growing Pains of Adrian, LazerWheel, and Cholo. Apart from Pod, that's a bad last section, isn't it?
Yes.
It's not great.
Ass crap.
Pity us. Pray for Mojo. Right, let's move on quickly. We've got some crapverts to look at. So the first one is... this is crap. The advert for the Edge's Warlock.
Was this only released on the Amstrad?
It says coming soon for C64 and Spectrum.
Oh, God, that means we have to play this rubbish.
We might have to play
Lord
this, yeah.
is Troll. The Doom Lord is Warlock. The Doom Lord is Goblin.
As Goblin. So Graham, do you want to give us a description of this great advert that we've got before our eyes?
It's got the Edge, the classic Edge logo at the bottom, the bottom-ish, and then there's the ethereal description of the game, enter the realm of damsels, dragons, ghouls, and dwarfs. Mm-hmm. Those 4 things aren't the usual things. I'm just saying, dragons, ghouls, maybe damsels, and dwarfs. Just sounds like an 80s nightclub. Enter the
D&D you don't want to play.
You don't. Of castles. This is a weird arbitrary list. Damsels, dragons,
list, yeah.
ghouls, and dwarfs. Of castles, dungeons, caves, and magic. As the Doom Lord, you take the form of a warlock. Why wouldn't you just be the Doom Lord? To do a battle with the forces of good. All right, so you're a baddie in this. Okay, that's the twist. Use your magical powers to change into goblin or troll forms and seek the orb of power, which will assure you a victory in final confrontation with the White Wizard. Just cacola. The graphics on this are stupid. So the mainstay of this is a wizard battle where the main wizard in red with his shiny, what looks like
Magic 8 Ball.
Magic 8 Ball and his wizardy zap stick and things is firing at an alien who, in fact, I have to say alien, he's not a wizard because he has an alien hand. He doesn't have a hand, he has a claw.
Yeah. He has a pincher, he's Crabman.
He's a crab wizard, he's a crizzard. He's a crizzard. And he doesn't look really that bothered. He's just like, oh, the ball's gone at my hand.
That's because that's not his claw.
That's weird. But the game title is above that, Warlock, and then there's these weird pictures underneath. It said the Doomlord as Troll, and there's a picture of, I think, what looks like John Bishop, like an evil green John Bishop. Yeah. And then it is. It genuinely is. It is. He's going to be Liverpudlian, that troll. I don't doubt that about it. What the is happening? The Doomlord as Warlock in the middle there is definitely, well, how would you describe him?
It just looks a bit shocked. He looks a bit shocked at his red eyes.
He looks like the drummer in a hood out of a thrash metal band. And then the guy on the far right is a pig-nosed, pointy-eared freak.
He's goblin.
I think that's kind of the look. It's not a great look.
He's got cock and balls for a nose.
Yes, he's a cock nose, and that's an awful thing for a goblin. And then in the background there's a castle which clearly has been borrowed. That's almost an exact replica of the castle from Krull. So I think they've just drawn around the castle from Krull because the castle from Krull appears wherever it wants to appear, and I think that's pretty much that. And then you've got this weird clawed hand white wizard fighting the evil red wizard with his magic 8 ball, or what looks like actually a hive controller for a heating system. So he's gonna put his heating on full blast for 2 hours. It's very expensive to do right now. Nightmare.
It does look cold here though.
No, he's going to put his heating on, maliciously put his heating on. He's like, no, my government subsidy won't cover that, you evil bastard. Terrible game. But what I can't believe is that supreme multi-role arcade fantasy is from The Edge. What's going on with The Edge? They were I thought they were cool, but they're not cool, are they really?
And don't forget as well, you've got the blue ball thing that's flying out to the right.
Well, is it on a stick or is it just? I don't know.
I don't know. I think it's on. I think it's another 8 ball on a stick, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's
a really bad advert. It's just all over the place.
Yeah.
It's just the white wizard guy. He looks really unbothered.
He looks very bored, and his beard and mustache is not as blown as the guy in the red cloak, who's clearly got massive amount of windage on his face. So all I can think is that the wind that is summoned is just very localized to his close vicinity.
To his face.
But it also hasn't affected his cloak in any way, shape or form. So just his beard is affected by that wind.
He's got beard wind.
He's got winding of the beard.
Massive winding of the beard.
But it hasn't affected anything else, including the lightning bolt, because it would have affected it. And you can see there's a strong wind from the castle in the background because of the white streaks. But that hasn't affected anything other than his beard. And it hasn't affected the white wizard's beard. So it's a very localized red beard wind.
Only those in the red cloak suffer from beard winding.
Yeah, winding of the beard. Massive winding of the beard, yeah.
So, yeah, that's a really good classic crapper, I thought. Back to the almost old style of just nonsense rubbish chucked together.
Utter shit.
Here we go, that's that one. Wait till you see the next one, which is...
Oh my God, is this Hubble, Bubble,
Martianoid Trouble? From Ultimate.
The fact that we had difficulty reading that. Martianoids sounds like something that you would go to the doctors with.
I've got a right case of the Martianoids.
Case of the Martianoids.
Yeah. You were in here last week with Bearding of the Wind. Winding of the beard, sorry.
Both. It's just, I like the idea that he brought the doctor an album called Bearding of the Wind. I brought you this. I've told you before.
I don't like it.
I don't like it. And you actually have winding of the beard, so just get out.
I don't like your prog nonsense. Woke up Rick Wakeman. And that's not good.
Soon may the Wakeman come to bring us sugar and tea. And so this is Hubble, Bubble.
I don't know.
Martian.
Is it 2 games?
I don't know.
I think it's 2 games, Bubbler and Martianoids.
I don't know. There's too many typefaces and fonts going off on one screen at once. I guess that it's Ultimate because of the 3 times that's mentioned. I don't like that weird alien backbone that's just in that image for no reason with like jet propulsion backbone. It's like a spine.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
And I
then
can't see the writing. It's too minuscule to be descriptive, isn't it? Can you read that? Is that something you can read?
Not really. And then it's just like a crappy party popper, isn't it? Going on.
No, it says something like prevent the wicked aliens from escaping the bubbling buttholes, bottles by collecting reeds,
corks, which
you will find when you
fall through a trapdoor.
The further you
who cares?
Manage to... And why am I struggling to read that? I don't know what it means, and I don't want to know what it means. This game is there's so many rainbow colours, and this is clearly a rainbow game. And there's nothing wrong with rainbows. There's nothing wrong with rainbow colours, unless you use them like this. This is how... when you did them chalk drawings when you were like 9...
Yeah.
Where you get a wax crayon and you colour it over with the rainbow colours in the background. Then you chalk over it with a black, and then you sort of literally get a scraping pen and you scrape the wax off it, I think is the way you do it. It's one of those, isn't it? It doesn't show you anything. There's an exploding bubble bottle. I think it says bubble on it.
Bubbler.
And there's two of those. One in a box for some reason that's never explained. And one not. Then it says Martianoid, and there's the spine, evil, dark-looking spine dagger creature in a box, multicolored box frame. And then there's one out of that for no reason, just sort of half cut off. This weird.
Yeah, what is this?
I think that meant to be bubbles dotted about, but because they haven't put the little light shade you need in a bubble to give it that 3D, they're just O's. They're just O's.
Yeah, they're just rainbow circles, aren't they?
Multicolored circles. Yeah. So no.
Yeah. Nothing makes any sense here, and I don't see what the two games have to do with each other. I mean, Bubbler, I get the Hubble Bubble, and then but Martianoid Trouble. I mean, that's really stretching the rhyme to make no sense at all. And I don't know what they were thinking.
Martianoids is a stupid thing to write, but if you're going to write it, you have to write it in a coherent, straight manner. Here, they've written it in kind of bubble writing, so it's bubbly. The writing is so bubbly, it's all over the place. And because of that, it looks like Martin's Droid Trouble. It doesn't look like you wouldn't read that and spell Martianoid. You might look at because you skip letters when you do. If you can't see anything in a straight line, so it looks like Martin's. It does like
Maria Noid Trouble.
Yeah, Maria Noid Trouble, which is the French lady who actually invented the question mark. But that's a whole.
Which we all know means. To blade.
And the Hubble bubble, or the Hubble bubble, is actually a very small micro fracture in the lens of the Hubble Space Telescope. You don't want to point that out to people because that's a scientific anomaly. That's things that you're just making people feel bad generally about something they did wrong when they launched that into space. This game's all kinds of wrong. All kinds of wrong. To make it look like an exciting firework, shame on you. Ultimate play the game, whatever you are.
It's a bad advert. But Ultimate used to do really cool adverts. This is terrible.
Yeah, well, when they used their logo 3 times at different angles in different ways, I'm afraid the dog started barking at that point. It was like, no. It's like, no, why have you done that? No. I like the idea that they've got some kind of...
Have you put that logo on 3 times? Yeah, why? Well, the dog started barking.
Because it looks like it's floating. It doesn't. Why have you put the bottle in a multicolored rainbow frame? Why wouldn't you do that? All right, graphic designer that's clearly on drugs.
Can write a list.
Why have you created the alien spine creature but cut off its head? Because it needed to be in the box with the Martian. All right, you know what?
Why not cut off its tail?
It's 500 quid in a check. Get on the train and piss off and never come back. You fucking dickhead.
You've got to beep a lot this episode.
Oh, I'll beep it.
It's all right. We're good at beeping.
There
you go. The Return of the Crapverts, and they don't disappoint. Those are 2 particularly good Crapverts.
Very bad Crapverts.
Yeah, very good. Let's wind up. I couldn't find a chart, or at least I haven't actually included one in this one, so never mind. No chart for this month. Who cares?
No charts.
We do have no charts, unless I put it above it. Did I put it above it? No, I didn't. Oh, well. Shame on me. Shame on me.
Shame.
Shame.
Ring a bell. Bing, ling, ling. Shame. All
right, yeah. Right, what we got coming up next month. Actually, so with the magic of modern editing, I've actually gone and found a chart now, so we can have some charts, and I can tell you what was going on according to Commodore User for May 1987. So let's have a look at this. At number 10, we have straight in, we have Nemesis. Number 9, straight in, is Feud. At number 8, down or up from number 9, is 180. New in at number 7 is Karate Champ. Haven't seen that, have we?
No, at all.
It's from Americana, so it's obviously a budget one. the budget re-release. In at number 6 is Arkanoid. Up to number 5 is Micro Rhythm. People really liking their drums. Up to number 4 is LA SWAT. Up to number 3 is Gunship. Up to number 2 is BMX Simulator. And sitting pretty for the second month at number 1 is Park Patrol. There we go. Just outside the top 10, Delta's in at number 11. Any other new entries? Ollie and Lissy went in at number 15. Konami's Coin Op Hits at 17. Executive Leaderboard 19. And Sport of Kings. I remember Sport of Kings. I used to like that. So we might have that somewhere. Anyway, that's in at number 20. There you go. That's your chart. What have we got coming up next month? Next couple of episodes, sorry. So that'll be June 87. We've got games like Auf Wiedersehen Monty.
Interesting.
Big Trouble in Little China. I remember that being not good. Cyborg, the real Cyborg this time.
Okay.
Death or Glory. Decathlon.
Okay.
Maybe a pass blaster. Doc the Destroyer. Feud. Gods and Heroes. Hero.
Okay.
I thought that was old. Jumpin' Jimmy, Kinetic. We've got Masters of the Universe.
Oh, God.
Nemesis the Warlock.
Okay, good music.
We have the good music, the Crapvert Nether Earth. Pitfall 2.
Late.
River Raid.
Even later.
Later. Romulus, which was the other Crapvert. So take-off from Romulus, whatever it was. Secret of Kandar. No idea. Star Raiders 2.
Okay.
Vampire.
Sounds like an adventure.
Vampire. These a bit Adventures of late realising Jonathan Harker. Xenon Ranger. And then we have 2 Sizzlers, Zenji and Zolix.
Okay. Sounds like budget games.
Don't recognise either of them.
I've never seen either of those. There's a lot of games in that list, with the exception of the big title that everyone recognises. I'd say 90% of those games I have not heard of or played. So this is kind of interesting. We're getting to weird territory for me.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't. There's about 50% of them. I'm like, what? So some of them may be old. Some of them we might look at. Some I don't know.
Absolutely, I am majorly intrigued by the Electric Dreams version of Big Trouble in Little China. I'm intrigued, but I'm not holding out much hope. But I'm intrigued because that's a very favourite film of mine. So
mine too. Yes.
Let's watch that get bummed.
Choloed. They'll get choloed out.
Max, absolutely.
Choloed out.
An 80-page novella will not save that.
Absolutely. I imagine it's going to suffer severe winding of the beard. I think that's it. I think that's it for this episode. Anything more you want to add? Oh, we should thank, do you want to go join the Patreon? Go on. It's nice.
Yes,
it's good on there.
We have a very incredible bunch of people in our Patreon already. You can join our Patreon by going to patreon.com/zappedtothe and for the price, a measly price, really, of a pint of beer or less, depending on where you're from, you can have all of the amazing things that come with our Discord server and all the fun of that and all the exclusives and all the exclusive access to the early release versions of the podcast and exclusive interviews and other amazing stuff. What's not to do about that? And it really does help us and support us in ways you can't imagine. It's cool. It's really cool. If you don't have to do it, you don't have to. There's no pressure. But if you do, nods to you. Hats off to you, and you can join in the fun of the Discord server. And I can tell you what, there's some amazing stuff going on in that Discord server right now, so it's a really cool place to be. So come and join the fun.
And I need some way to keep me in Coke. So
there is that.
That's how I do these episodes. So I keep going.
There is
What's getting me through these games.
There is that.
Right. So on that note, that was episode 53. On that note,
on that confessional note,
On that confessional note, indeed. Please don't arrest me. I have been Adrian Mills.
I have been Graham Raddings.
We have been Winded of the Beard. Bearded of the Wind, whatever. And we've also been Zapped, and you've also been listening to Zapped to the Past. We'll hopefully see you again. Not see you. Talk to you again. You can listen to us again next week. It's bearding.
Just check out that beard.
Check it out.
Watch for beards.
Especially when they're flapping with no visible wind on anything else.
Watch for the winding of your beard.
Absolutely. It can happen to the best of us. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Zapped to the Past podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of Commodore 64 games, as well as the music, films and TV from around the 1980s, driven, of course, by the issue of Zap 64 magazine published at that time. We will return with a whole new batch of games and stuff to talk about next week. Until then, if you want to listen to or download previous episodes of Zapped to the Past, and why wouldn't you, they can all be found on our website at zappedtothepast.com, as well as being available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, Audible, Player FM, and, well, pretty much anywhere where we can upload them. By the way, we do always love to hear from our amazing listeners, so if you'd like to contact us about anything in the podcast or beyond, you can do so by emailing us at zappedtothepast@gmail.com. We're also active on Twitter under @ZappTother, as well as Facebook, Instagram, and most social media platforms. Just search for Zapped to the Past and you'll find us. Oh, and if you like the podcast and what we're doing, please do like, share, review, rate us. It really helps. Something, apparently. The Zapped to the Past podcast is written and produced by Adrian Mills and Graham Raddings, and recorded at Flaky Bits 2.0 Studio. All opinions expressed are those of the writers, and while we indeed love Zap 64 magazine, the Zapped to the Past podcast is not affiliated with it in any way. Stay safe, see you next time, and remember, we play these games so you don't have to.